Good evening and welcome to the Easthampton City Council meeting for Wednesday, September 16th, 2020. The meeting tonight is being recorded and broadcast live via Easthampton Media on Charter Channel 193 and live streamed on Easthampton Media's YouTube channel. Our thanks to Easthampton Media for their assistance in broadcasting this meeting and for all the meetings that they help us with throughout the city. All counselors and participants in this meeting are gathered remotely via the Zoom conferencing application. Remote public meetings during our COVID-19 pandemic are the result of an executive order by Governor Baker on March 12, 2020, allowing us to do so. I remind both the members of the City Council and the public to remain on mute until recognized by the chair. The meeting is now called to order. Is Barbara here? Barbara, take the roll call.
Peg Coniff.
Here.
Ilham Derby.
Present.
Omar Gomez.
Here.
JP Kaczynski. Bill Lynch. Tom Peak. Dan Rist.
Here.
Lindsay Rothschild. Here. Owen Zarrett.
Here. I think Councilor Lynch is trying to get into the meeting.
I got Tom and Bill are now in the meeting.
Okay. All right.
And JP is joining as well. And I believe, Barbara, that will make all 9?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'll just wait a second for those guys to get logged in, and then we will move on. Are you guys all here? JP? Okay.
I'm here.
All right. At this time, let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have no minutes to approve, so we will move into public speak. For those who are attending the meeting tonight for the public speak portion of the agenda, please remember this is your turn to speak to the council, and we will be listening but not responding in any way to your comments. We ask that you remain respectful and direct your comments only to the City Council. Also tonight, we recognize that there are special circumstances around this, and we're going to be cognizant of the fact that we are not going to allow personal attacks on anyone in this meeting. We're not going to allow anyone to speak disparagingly of either candidate or of anyone else on this call. So please be aware that if you go down that path, I will probably mute you. And if you go down that path again, I will probably excuse you from the meeting. So fair warning, we're not going to put up with any shenanigans. If you would like to speak, use the raise your hand feature by selecting the participants option at the bottom of your screen, then click raise hand at the bottom of the participants window. If you are dialing in via phone only, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. Please remain on mute until called, at which point you can unmute your own connection and begin your comment. Before commenting, please state your name and your street. There's no need to give your house number or the town if you're not an Easthampton resident. If you find that your internet connection is slow, please remove the video portion, and that generally helps. You will have 3 minutes to make your comment. If time runs out, you can finish the sentence you were speaking, but that's pretty much it. Also, as a reminder, we have a public hearing tonight at 6:15 that we have to adhere to. It is on our city charter and all the changes that have been going on for the last year and a half by the committee that was charged with reviewing our charter. So that, I expect, is going to take a long time. So I'm giving you guys some awareness that we will do public speak, but at 6:15 we're moving into a public hearing. At the completion of the public hearing, we will resume public speak, and then we will go into the rest of the agenda. For the remainder of the councilors who may not have been here when we said this early on, we're going to move appointments to the top of the agenda. And so it's going to move before finance. It'll be the first thing we deal with once we come out of the public hearing and public speak. All right. Okay. I see a couple of hands up where we can, so thank you for that. Any comments from anyone before we get started? And by that, I mean the city councilors. Okay. I want to, Sarah Amoroso, who was a member of the Charter Committee for the last year and a half, she's actually here to talk about the charter. So, and she has some childcare issues. So we're going to let her go first. And Sarah, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I was a member of the Charter Review Committee. I guess we started back in August of 2018, and we worked all the way through 2019. We did a pretty comprehensive review of the charter, and I think that the changes that we made were thoughtful and I think ultimately helpful to the openness, understandability, and general accessibility of government in Easthampton. I would urge the City Council to accept the charter as we have remodeled it, though a lot of it remains the same. However, I will say that there are some important things, issues that we had a lot of contention about, a lot of ideas that we weren't able to resolve just for the sake of time. So I don't think that should preclude any future efforts to continue the work. I would also note that I did send emails to the councilors regarding the appointments, and I don't have to repeat myself, but I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that. And I thank you all and enjoy your review of Charter Review.
Thanks, Sarah.
For your help.
All right. Myra, did you want to say something?
Okay, hopefully you can hear me.
Yep.
Thinking I'm looking like a Martian, but
Just give us your name and your street, Myra.
I'll give you my name and my ward. My street is very small.
Fair enough.
My name is Myra Oyedemi, and I'm a resident of Ward 1.
Okay.
I'd like to speak tonight, firstly, thanking the City Council for the review of the charter. I think that was a great, anyway, I'll just say I think kudos for that. Reviewing the charter, as it was, I believe I heard from Tom Pete that was something that was going to be done. But actually, what I'd like to speak to is a kind of a continuation from last night's meeting, and speaking of support of myself and Gabby Stevens to be members of the CRC. As you heard last night, we stated our qualifications, our rationale, and our reasoning for wanting to be a part of the committee. And I continue to firmly believe that myself and Gabby Stevens would be excellent candidates for the committee, simply for the fact that we bring different voices and different perspectives. As I've watched on the committee and as I sat quietly listening to the committee, I believe we have a lot to contribute in terms of our skill sets. I'd also like to offer that we are also the committee, members of the committee have expressed the need for diversity and spoken to the need of hindrance because of the lack of the diversity on the committee. I myself can speak to my life experiences, and I think the totality of our life experience is one of the most important qualifications and one of the most important factors in determining our inclusion in the committee. I can speak as a woman of color, and I can especially speak to Gabby Stevenson's identity, cultural identity, and linguistic identity, and thinking that she would be a person that can communicate in a language that I don't believe is currently represented on the CRC, as well as being able to have people, as when seeing there's a more diverse body, feel as though it has, as feeling it will reach its more legitimacy, being a diverse body that represents a lot of voices that may be large in life. And I think that her skill set of being able to analyze problems and think of solutions is very much needed and has been expressed by members in that committee. part of the goals and aims as defined, I believe it's chapter 11, was that barriers be identified, barriers of inclusion be identified, trends and data points need to be analyzed. So although we were, one of the things that were touched upon was empathy last night, yes, I believe we need to be empathetic, but we also need to be a body that's problem solving, thinking of procedures and solutions, and being able to identify data trends. And to that end, I think Gabby Stevens very much fits that description. She's a woman of color. Her home language is Spanish. She is an English language learner. No, she described her experience as an English language learner. And she has a terrific skill set in terms of being a researcher, tracking procedures. And I would like to say, in terms of last night, I think all adults use expletives, and I think all adults shouldn't be confined to language. And I can say in the meetings that I've attended with elected officials, expletives were used as a way of building camaraderie. Did I use an expletive? No, but it's something that has been used, and I'm sure in speaking to constituents, many people may have done that as well.
Hi, Myra. Myra, you have just a couple of seconds to go.
Okay, so that was my thinking. I think Gabby Stevens and myself, sorry, there's bugs here, are candidates that are putting our skill set voluntarily, not paid, but are willing to help and serve the community for a committee to reach its full potential and find more validity, which has been sought out and expressed by its members. That I yield my time if I have any left.
Thank you. Wes.
Can you guys hear me?
Now we can. Yep, go ahead.
Wes Hardy, Precinct 5. I'm just tuning into all this a little bit later, but I am kind of concerned about the warning that the council president gave at the beginning of public speak about essentially moderating public speak time. If people have negative things to say about candidates for office or about representatives, they're speaking to the government. They're okay. Voicing their opinion. And
hey, Wes, I can clarify that for you. What I was speaking to was a public attack on their character. If you want to say things that are germane to their appointment to a committee, that's fair game. What I don't want is people getting disrespectful and rude about an individual. Just talk about their qualifications. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, that's sort of distinction without a difference in many ways when we're talking about,
We'll have to agree to disagree, Wes.
Sure. But I think if you look nationally on the state level, if you look at just races in general, they normally become referendums on not just policy. So, to restrict it to just policy, I think is crazy. I don't have a comment on the nominees, but I do think that the process is important, and we need to allow voices, especially voices that we don't like from all sides, to speak whatever it is that they feel is necessary to speak. And I think when we start trying to control language and try to control how people communicate what it is that they think or feel about their government and their representatives, I think we're treading on very dangerous territory. To couple that with the fact that if it's only negative things that are not allowed to be said, then obviously all of the positive things would be said. So effectively, it's censorship of opposing voices. Now, you can say that things were too nasty, and I would probably agree with you. And it's not good to have ad hominem attacks, and it doesn't help discourse, right? But we're all in this together, and we gotta hear each other. We don't have to like what we hear, right? We don't have to agree with what people say, but we got to at least get people the chance to speak out loud and say what they want. I think prefacing, you know, public comment with a chilling effect of, hey, like, I'm going to be hitting the ban hammer. I will be muting people if I don't like what's being said is, I think, sort of the antithesis of the point of public comment. That's, you know, that's just it. I like the person that commented before, I sent an email, you know, explaining what I thought about, you know, the appointments and everything else. And, you know, it's interesting too, because, you know, if someone were to send out an email to all their public officials, right? I mean, that couldn't be stopped, right? But it's just if someone's saying it out loud that we don't like it. So I don't know, that's sort of how I feel. Good luck to everybody.
Thanks, Wes. I feel as though I need to just clarify, perhaps what I said was misunderstood. There's a difference in my mind between evaluating an individual as a fit for a committee, and then there is a difference in personally attacking them for their beliefs and their personal attacks. I don't think this meeting and requires that. You are speaking to the city council. You are not speaking to, you are directing your questions to the city council. So the city council is asking you to please not make personal attacks on individuals that you are speaking about. I think we're all adult here, and I think we can differentiate what a personal attack is versus what a difference of opinion on an individual's fitness for a committee. And that's really the crux of it. And I will leave it at that. You can all disagree with me if you'd like, and that's your right. And now we go to Kay. Kay Collins?
Hey, Councillor. Apologies, Councillor Connor. I missed the first couple minutes of the meeting. Is this the time of speaking to appointments? I just wanted to make sure that was correct. Perfect, thank you. Councillor, my name is Kay Collins. I reside at 4 Carroll Avenue, Easthampton. I am here tonight to speak in favor of both Gabriella Stevenson and Mayoral being appointed to the Community Relations Commission. I know them both well, and I know them to be deeply kind and thoughtful people with a passion for making a difference in their community. As women of color, theirs are voices that we very much need to hear. I also just want to state that I was disturbed and frustrated by the tenor of the questioning last night, particularly of Gabby. My experience to other appointments have not been quite as intense. I also want to say that Mayor LaChapelle has previously stated that the city was having trouble filling vacancies for the CRC because people were afraid to be targeted. And indeed, both of the candidates tonight have been personally targeted for speaking up, and yet here they are, applying anyway. When it seemed that Ms. Gray was targeted due to her application, there was an extremely and understandably strong and very public condemnation of harassment by the mayor and the councilors. When Gabby shared her story of being vilely harassed due to speaking up about the problematic nature of the thin blue line art presented to the EPD a couple years ago, instead of a strong condemnation of harassment, she was pressed on why she would not simply ignore what she needed to feel safe and meet privately with a counselor who didn't step up to strongly condemn her being targeted at that time. And at that time, I also had stepped to Councillor Zarrett to talk about the thin blue line flag and how some of his defenses of it, in my opinion, were out of line. How it was harmful, particularly in a climate of anti-immigrant sentiment. And I spoke to the history behind it in the hopes that some visible demonstration of understanding would come to pass, and it did not, never did. This community has a history sometimes of paying lip service to protecting and caring for people of color, but when it comes to action, we are lacking. I've seen white allies tell BIPOC community members that they would happily consider their opinions if only they spoke them more nicely. And that was echoed in Councillor Kwasinski's disapproval of Gabby's use of profanity several years ago to express frustration with people coming onto her property and stealing signs. Perhaps the councillor could have instead expressed disapproval of the thieves and the subsequent harassment that Gabby faced. The bravery and dedication to making positive strides in Easthampton that's displayed by both of these women, despite the harassment that they already have faced and surely will face for taking part in the Community Relations Commission, should not be discounted. And I'm going to ask you to, I'm going to urge you strongly to confirm both of them.
Thank you, Kay. We are at 6:20. I would like to break for our public hearing at this point. Those of you who are here to speak on public speak, as I mentioned earlier, you will be allowed to do so once we complete our public hearing. But public hearing needs to kind of happen now. So hang on, and if we'll try to get through this as quickly as we can. But I will now turn it over to Councilor Rist.
I move that we open the public hearings.
Second.
Motion to open the public hearings. Barbara?
Peg Coniff,
Yes.
Dalen Derby,
Aye.
Wilmer Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski. Bill. JP, okay. Bill Lynch,
Yes.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Dan Rist, Lindsay Rothschild.
Aye.
Owen Zaret.
Yes.
Public hearing is now open. Dan, you are muted, by the way.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to read a statement, and then we'll go into questions. The 2019-2020 Charter Review is complete. It was submitted by the Select Charter Review Committee 1 year ago and has undergone mayoral and city attorney review. The final version you see this evening includes revisions that were requested by the city attorney and the mayor, but overall, the intent of the committee was maintained. This version has been approved by the mayor. I want to thank the committee for its hard work. Meeting twice a month for a year, they worked so hard. Besides this document, the committee achieved voter approval for ranked choice voting in mayoral and precinct councilor elections and extension of the mayoral term for 4 years. Quite an accomplishment. I consider this alone to be a remarkable work. The committee members included citizens Sarah Amoroso, Pat Broff, David Boyle, Robert Parent, and councilors Tom Peak, Omar Gomez, former councilor Joe McCoy, and myself. I will do a brief summary of the revisions on the assumption that all councilors have studied the document. After that, I will seek questions from the members of the council sharing the document when necessary. After that, public comment will be requested. Please note that typos are constantly being discovered. The city attorney will receive this document once approved and will need to put it into legislative format. Typos can still be addressed. Once I present a motion for approval, councilors may request amendments, but only to remove any new language the committee has suggested in any article and section. Totally new language will not be approved by the mayor, so I respectfully request that members not attempt to add new language. Article 1, I'm going to go now through each article with a very brief summary of what we did. Generally, we tried to make the charter clearer, more modern, and removed ambiguity. In Article 1, definitions primarily define different forms of electronic communication so as to bring the charter into modern means of communication. In Article 2, the legislative section, change the word district to precinct globally in the document to be consistent with voter identification of geographic location. In 2.3, we added language to allow a councilor with council and ethics division approval to offer expertise to the city and the school department and receive a stipend for such services. 2.9b added language to clarify how measures may be voted on and advertised when first presented in the agenda. In 2.9c, we changed how ordinances need to be published. In 2.10, changed the timing on mayoral appointments to have the clock started when presented at a council meeting to help with summer time and when the council must approve department head appointments. Article 3, executive, primarily remove language in 3.4 that would suggest the council could override the decision of a mayor to remove a department head, which is inconsistent with 3.3, which states clearly that the mayor has final authority to do so. The committee talked at length whether it wanted to add council ability to override the mayor's decision to remove a department head, deciding in the end that the charter provides for a mayoral central government, for a mayoral central government, and it should be maintained in this instance. Article 4, schools, primarily adopted the current school committee and department practices essential in modernizing them. Article 5, the budget, clarified that the budget must be submitted at least 60 days before the beginning of the new fiscal year. Removed language that asked the mayor to estimate surplus revenue for a new budget when this is not possible until the DOR certifies the city's free cash in the fall of the new fiscal year. Also, we clarified appropriation and transfer procedures and timing, and also gave the mayor more time, 90 days rather than 150 prior to the fiscal year beginning, to have to submit a capital improvement program. Administrative, clarified the scope of the DPW as being governed by general laws of the Commonwealth and through administrative code. Changed the term of the director of DPW to 3 years with a requirement to follow rules and procedures that all employees are subject to. Changed the name of the personnel department to human resources, a more modern definition. Article 7, elections, eliminated the notion of a preliminary election, which city has never used for nominating purposes. Clarified petition submission language and added more time for attorney and counsel review of any petition. Article 8, general provisions, added new language for establishing a charter review committee. Also made ordinance reviews mandatory by changing the word may to quote unquote shall, and mandating the review in every year ending in 5 so as not to conflict with charter reviews. Finally, Article 9, transitions. Most of the language in this article referred to the 1996 transition from town to city form of government, so it is removed. Clarified that the article now deals with transitions upon amendments to the charter. That concludes. So I will now entertain questions, and I will share the screen with the document should someone have a question. I notice, well, this is for counselors. Counselor Khan, if I ask you to call on people.
Counselor Zaret.
I'd have to look up the specific article. I could pull it up now. Counselor Riss, I had two questions. One was in terms of operational, and the other one was more inquisitive. We've discussed around budget time specifically about being reimbursed for expenses, counselor expenses. We've discussed, for instance, the MMA conference, and there's notes about, there it is, and the wording's a little nebulous. Well, I guess if I'm understanding this correctly, if there's no budgeted funds, then there's no reimbursement. Is that what I'm to understand?
We had two areas that we were concerned about. One was...
I'm sorry, could everyone please mute their microphone? I'm hearing some background noise.
Thank you, Councilor Khan. We were concerned that there was an expectation of reimbursement if we didn't change the language, because it says currently that shall be entitled to reimbursement of their actual necessary expenses. So a person attending the MMA conference can insist on reimbursement based on the charter. We want it to be approved by the council president, that's all, so that there was a procedural method by which if a reimbursement was available, it would be available because there was a budget for it, and the president, being the department head, would therefore have to approve that expense. Otherwise, there was concern amongst the committee that the current language allows for perhaps a conflict between someone who wanted to be reimbursed and felt that the charter mandated it. It's just a clarification kind of thing.
Can I ask my other question now?
Sure.
Sure, go ahead.
Was there any discussion around the Board of Public Works and considering expanding that to 5? I always was concerned as you scroll through. I was always concerned in regards to open meeting laws that it makes it complicated when you have a committee of 3.
I have an answer to that. We actually did recommend to the mayor that we change it to 5. There was a lot of debate over it. And the committee did at one time submit that to the mayor. Now, as you know, the mayor has the right to approve or disapprove of something, and she had initially agreed to it, but then had a great deal of difficulty finding people to be on that committee. So in the end, after a lot of discussion, she decided to maintain it as a 3-person committee. And the committee didn't address that because that was after the fact that the committee had sent the charter in. But as I said, some of the things that the committee had desired weren't necessarily approved by the mayor. Most of them were. This is one where she decided that it would be too difficult to appoint 5 members. It was brought forward exactly for the reasons you said, so that 2 members could meet with the mayor, say. But unfortunately, there is a concern, which I understand, about finding people and getting a quorum when you have 5 members as opposed to 3. So I'll let the mayor speak to that if she wishes, but that's where we ended up. Do you want to say anything?
Mayor, did you want
Yeah,
to?
I just unmuted. No, actually, I have nothing to add. Councilor Riss presented my thoughts and the deliberations back and forth with the committee.
Okay. Do any other counselors have any questions on this, on anything really related to the charter? Really? No one?
I am not going to complain there, Councilor.
Hello.
Oh, hi. Hi. Okay, go ahead, Councilor.
Just a small thing, but the part about electronic communication.
Which article are we talking about, Lindsay? Article 1?
Page 3. It's section 1(7).
Okay, I got it up.
Okay, I don't know, that definition just seems a little gobbledygook. I'm wondering, in terms of shall mean direct transmission of messages over communication networks such as, would it be easier just to say shall mean direct transmission of messages through the internet or online? I mean.
Well, you hit upon a subject that we all debated a long time.
Okay, because this just sounds like.
We had absolutely different language, but this language you see here now was given to us by the city attorney. He felt it needed to be much clearer as to different things were said. In other words, we put all of these things in one definition. He separated them out: city website, electronic publication, and electronic communication, because he said it would be too confusing.
No, that's not what I'm questioning, though. I'm saying specifically under electronic communication, just saying the words electronic communication shall mean direct transmission of messages over communication networks such as email. Like, what other communication networks are you talking about besides ones that are online, like email and social media?
Social media, I guess.
So can't you just say messages over email and social media? Or I see Nicole the mayor raising her hand.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, so Councilor Rothschild, that was a conversation that came up at the committee, but also the back and forth with the city attorney. The idea that the document might not be reviewed for 10 more years, we wouldn't know future going forward what the names would be for other electronic communications. It's certainly, as well, law changes. Right now there are conversations in case law back and forth around texts. You know, are text public record or not? How do you freeze a text? That sort of thing. So the city attorney felt comfortable with these definitions that could be further clarified by case law, ordinances on the city level, state law, and admin code. And that's why the language is the way it is. And I was confused at first too why we would do that, but it does make good sense. I feel like 10 years ago, you know, there were electronic communications, you know, I don't know if it would count, but TikTok. So that's the...
TikTok? But
Yeah.
it's social media, though. I don't know. I don't know. I work in the digital online space, and this feels very dated and weird, but that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to.
It was probably dated the day it was written. All I can say is the city attorney wanted, these are definitions, and as they're used in the document, it leaves room for interpretation. So I believe it seemed more general, but that's how city attorneys work. They can interpret that way. What electronic communication means in the future, I guess, is that what the mayor's bringing up.
Yeah, I would just want to add to that. So also remember, social media can be construed and indeed can be public record, depending on how it's used or how it's questioned, as is TikTok, Snapchat, or whatnot. And that's why we're trying to capture that in the spirit. And the city attorney went with this particular language, the definition of public record, as well as communicating as a municipality changes with case law. So maybe what Facebook was considered 10 years ago and what it's considered now are completely different because there have been different cases.
One other thing that we had been thinking about a lot here was the idea that, this document hadn't been like there was a charter review since this was formed, but a lot of this stuff was from the 90s, and we were trying to keep in mind the idea that it could be 20 years before this was reviewed. And in that time, we weren't sure in what way sort of communication technology would evolve, and whether, the way that we are talking, it seems like this is a little bit futurist, but like if we specifically say the internet, like what if there's some other communication platform that rolls out in 8 years that is actually distinct from the internet? Do we have to amend our charter in order to use that for communicating officially?
Okay. Just seems like there'd be a lot of things if you're like saying what if it's invented within 8 years, but I'm not going to belabor it. It just seems like it could be more straightforward. Anyway, that's it. I'm not going to, that's it.
Any other comments from anyone? Anyone?
Councilor Peak.
Thanks, Dan, so much for everything, but for that summary, it was really helpful. There was one change that was in here that I think might have gotten missed in the run through that I just wanted to talk about, which is just about, I believe it's in section 7. Our change to the referendum process doesn't just extend the timeline that council gets to review it. It also does something else, which is that it makes the default action, if the council doesn't act, that the referendum is approved rather than denied, which I personally
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
A really cool thing. I don't know of any other cities that do it that way, and I think it is going to sort of change the way that future referendums are handled by the council, because previously you could sort of just not take any action on it and it would fail.
This is it, right?
Yes. Just the change of the word rejected to approved sort of changes what happens if enough people care about something that they actually are going to get signatures and bring it to us. So I was kind of excited about that, so I just wanted to make sure that got read into the summary as well.
It's an example of how one word, like from may to shall on ordinances, and in this case, this makes sure that the city council can't table a petition and not act on it. This means you have to act on it. And that's just one word change, which, thank you, Tom, that was excellent. Anything else from anyone?
Any other comments?
I think, Lindsay, you have your hand up again.
That's just an action on a petition. What about like if there's a vote in the council and it's tied?
Tied? I'm not sure I understand the question, Lindsay.
Well, do you have to have 5 votes for something, or do you need to have 5 votes against something?
Well, I think that's all laid out in section 2. It kind of depends, so like some things you need 6 votes for something to pass. For some things you only need 5. For some things, if it's a tie, like I know for the appointments process, there's a whole thing there where I believe, the council actually needs to vote affirmatively to reject an appointment or it does pass. And I don't think we changed any of that, though.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Shall I make a motion?
I guess we can go to a vote.
All right, I'm gonna.
There's no public speak here. I thought for there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Oh my God, yes.
Right.
why don't we let the public weigh in? If you'd like to comment on this, go ahead and raise your hand. I know that there's like 5 or 6 people that are.
MVP, in fact.
I'm sorry, what is happening?
The larger issue that has brought us all together. This is an effective way to actually do something positive. And has
I think you got someone's TV in the background.
Oh,
those introductions or in your chats, that's the tone we're trying to set.
It's not me.
Essentially, do a.
all right. I muted everybody because I don't know what that was. So if you would like to speak on the charter, I know there's like Jean, Carolyn, Mindy, Pasqualina, and Lynn. If you would like to speak on it, go right ahead. But if you're waiting for public speak, that's totally fine. And we can just see if others want to speak on this. So if any of you would like to, go ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to speak on the city charter.
This is Carolyn. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Carolyn Cushing, Main Street. I have a comment on the budget. I am in line for the other speak as well. There's a lot of detail, obviously, in this, and it's kind of good to be here and see it all. My comments here may be a layer that goes over, maybe not something to go right in this document, but I offer them in case they are. In 5.3 through 5.5, the presentation of the budget, I think our communication of the draft budget, the budget process could be more transparent, more of outreach so people could know and be involved earlier in the process. The water department every year sends a publication to everyone who lives here. I'm kind of wondering, the budget is just as an important document. Why does not everyone just get mailed out like we get the statements from the water department? Also, I don't know if this is something to go in the charter. Perhaps there's some way to say this. There could be various ways to present the information for people who process and see things differently, such as more charts and graphical elements. So you could see what are going to different departments. What is the change is happening year to year? Just my experience this year, it was hard to find the budget, and I reached out to people. Eventually I found the budget. It was hard to really figure out what was happening. If I had maybe known more about some of the phases and changes made, that could have been helpful in my way of later on engaging around the budget. So that's my comment, and thank you for all your work on these many details.
Thanks, Carolyn. Anyone else would like to speak regarding the charter?
Hey, it looks like Allison has her hand up. I don't know if you can see her.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see your hand. Sorry, Allison. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Allison LeClaire, school superintendent. And I heard about this being on the agenda tonight, and this is the first time that I'm really seeing it and having a chance to review it. Unfortunately, I don't think the school committee was consulted in the development of some of these sections that have to do with them. So I wish that we had members of the committee here to speak to it. But one area in particular is, I think, 6.5. Dan, I'm wondering if you can scroll to that section, and it's around personnel, records. And so it's a concern for me, and particularly in reference to the fact that really the personnel records are a function of the school, and they belong to the school committee rather than the town. And according to Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 37M, if the school committee actually needs to take a vote to move personnel records from the school department to the city before the city council can take a vote to do that. So I wasn't sure if you had an understanding of that legislation, and I'm happy to share a legal opinion that I received from our attorney about a year or two ago. We were exploring this back then, and I can tell you that our school committee has not taken any action on this. So this is news to us. So I wanted to bring you up to speed on that, and you know, personnel records, and I know the mayor and I have talked about this several times. For me, personnel records are very important to keep upstairs in the school department, and it would present a challenge for me to get access to personnel files down in City Hall. It's not insurmountable, but it is definitely a challenge. I have my hands touching various personnel folders on a daily basis, and for me to have to run downstairs and get a file and come back upstairs to my office or ask my assistant to do that, I think takes up, is a meaningless task for me to do in an already pretty busy day. So I just wanted to say that that section is a concern to me as the school superintendent, and I would love to explore it more in depth if at all possible. I don't want to.
Madam President, since this is the superintendent of schools, we should answer the questions. I should tell you that this was presented to us by the former Human Resources Director. At the time, we thought it was a system that both the school department and the city would absolutely have access to. I hear your concerns, and unfortunately, as to the law, the city attorney reviewed all this, so that could be an issue which would have to be further looked into. I'm going to ask the mayor, I don't see an issue because personnel records are also private in our city, so I don't know how to answer this, and I would ask the mayor if she could come in with this, because I actually never thought of this problem, to be honest with you.
Yes, so Dr. LeClaire and I have talked about this several times. I think that where the records are, they need to be double locked, they need to be safe, and they need to have also a separate file within them that deals with medical issues, and then another one that deals with things of say, benefits and whatnot. The school department is a department of the city. The city holds the ultimate liability for for anything relating to personnel files, and not the school department. Right now, we hold the liability on all things personnel, including workers' comp, MCAD claims. My hope of this, and I think when you're looking at this document, there is certainly MGL that supports a school committee and their votes. However, I believe that MGL and case law is referring more to professional certification and what you would find on ELAR, and not other documents that now exist that didn't when that case law was settled. Attorney Tanner, the city attorney, and I had a quick conversation about that, because I'm looking to actually consolidate all HR operations for several reasons within the city, but there should be one personnel record. It should be in one place, and it should be with the person that reviews and holds the ultimate liability, and that's the city.
I would just like to say that this doesn't preclude this development and maintenance of a centralized personnel record system doesn't preclude that there won't be elements of it that can't be negotiated, I would think.
Right. Yes, I agree.
It's all private. No personnel records are open to the public.
Yes, I find the language in the charter legally correct, as did the city attorney, and I feel like the content of personnel that the superintendent would need immediate access, or what I would want to do is purely operational.
It doesn't preclude the school department from getting access to records, does it?
It does not, and it nor does it do for any other department head.
I hope that helps, Allison. I don't know what else to say.
I think it does present challenges, but I will defer to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison.
Counselor Kwasinski. Can't hear you. Nope. Cannot hear you. We're gonna, JP, try to figure that out. We're gonna move over to Counselor Rothschild because we can't hear you. Counselor Rothschild, go ahead.
I guess I just want to understand more of Dr. LeClaire's concerns, and I also, was there other concerns that you have in here in terms of the school committee not being involved in this process? Do you see things in that section? Is there a way that we can still get them involved at this point?
Well, I think
I'm sorry, I have to defend the committee on this. I sent out requests to the school committee when we were dealing with Article 4 numerous times. I asked for former, not on this issue, but on school department issues. So I did present it, and it has been published for a long time. So we weren't, certainly not attempting to hide anything from the school committee. Also, this area that we're talking about now, it was never brought up to us by anyone that this could be an issue for record keeping, because it's all personnel records are all private. But I just want to defend the committee on that.
Counselor Kwasinski, were you able to fix your microphone problem? No, doesn't sound like it. Okay.
Still asking.
I'm sorry.
I asked Dr. LeClaire a question. So she didn't get a chance to respond.
Okay, go ahead. Ask it again, because I wasn't aware that it was in the form of a question.
Yeah, I was asking Dr. LeClaire if there was other areas in here that you feel that the school committee participation was lacking. Is there's another area of concern that you see? I'm not, and I don't feel that there needs to be defense. I mean, there's just so much work going on in the city. Like, I don't think anyone was trying to keep the school committee out, but sometimes we have to be more proactive if they need to be considered. So I'm just asking Dr. LeClaire if there's any other concerns.
Sure. It was in particular applicable to this section, although just reading through, I've seen Dan scroll through this. I see school committee is mentioned in a few other areas as well, and I have not had the time to peruse them. As I said, this was the first time I've seen this document was today. So this has not been shared with me previously. If it was available on the district, not district, but on the city website, I apologize. I must have missed it in COVID, but it was never shared with me. I never had any input into it. And I don't believe anyone on my school committee had input into it. That's to my knowledge, but they may have had input into it. So it's not something that has been discussed at the school committee level. And therefore, I was surprised when I read through section 6.5 today with my impression that under Mass General Law, the personnel files were a part of the school committee's purview. And so I thought that the school committee, even if I didn't have knowledge of it, I thought that they would have some insight into this discussion happening behind the scenes. And so I'm certainly not accusing, it could have very well happened in that manner, and I'm just unaware of it. but this will significantly change the way that we do some of our HR functions. And so it's just something that a heads up would have been appreciated. But I know everyone's running in many different directions right now.
I'm sorry, Dr. Leclerc, I jumped on what you were saying there.
No, that's fine.
We have, let's go Councillor Peak, then Councillor Zaret, and then Councillor Kwasinski, if you were able to dial in. But we'll start with Councillor Peak.
Yeah. So in terms of Superintendent Leclerc's concerns, I completely get that. I don't think it necessarily dawned on any members of the committee that the specific language could cause an issue specifically with the schools. Otherwise, I believe somebody certainly would have reached out. But in terms of consultation with the school committee, Section 5, which is if I'm not mistaken, 5 is the section about the school committee, right?
Section 4.
Four, yes. That section was essentially rewritten almost in its entirety by a group of current and former school committee members who came to us with their concerns. So it's not like, and I don't have any sense of whether that was in an official or an unofficial capacity that they did. But if you look at that section with the track changes, nearly that entire section has been rewritten. And that was almost all just accepted verbatim based on the advice of a handful of current and former members of the school committee who had come and attended that meeting. It certainly wasn't written in in complete absence of any sort of opinion. Now, when it comes to the issue of personnel files, I'll say, and maybe this is on me, that I'm not familiar enough with the current personnel filing system to know exactly who that's going to affect. I didn't give a whole lot of thought to that thing, but there certainly was an effort, to communicate with members of the school committee. And in fact, very substantial changes were made at the request of members of the school committee.
Councillor Zaret?
So I'm hearing questions from the superintendent, and I think piggybacking off of that, Councillor Rothschild, I think, kind of raised some interesting points, and then members of the committee are also establishing kind of a timeline of what happened. And I'm just wondering if there's opportunities and a deadline to vote on this, or if there's any flexibility to allow a continuance just for a review by the school committee and the superintendent. But I also, hearing Councillor Peak and Councillor Riss, it does sound like there was some feedback, and I just don't know if everyone had the opportunity to participate, and certainly not in any purposeful way. But I'm just hearing these and just wondering if there's any way to mediate this.
I don't feel comfortable doing that, given how long it's taken for us to get to this point. And I believe we've tried our best to have this available to the public. So I would have to oppose that myself, because that would require further review. It would open up the whole committee again, and having the committee meet with, I guess, the school department and starting over. And then the mayor would have to get involved, and then the city attorney again. So this is, when we change the charter, there's a lot of elements in it that are difficult, but must be followed. It has to be reviewed by the mayor, it has to be reviewed by the city attorney, and once the language is established, it has to go to the state. So I'm sorry, I just feel a little frustrated that we've come to a point where we may have to start over with any section, but that's just me.
So, Mayor, I had given JP Kwasinski.
Yep. Yes.
We'll get to you as soon as we hear from Councillor Kwasinski.
Thank you.
JP.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. We'll try to do it with the phone rather than the computer. I did want to say that I received an email from the chair of the school committee this evening, and everyone did, but I would like to read it. Dear counselors, I cannot attend tonight's meeting, but I wanted to share with you a concern that I have around centralizing personnel records as it pertains to the school department. As a teacher myself, I don't know how many times a district needs to access personnel files. I'm sorry, I know how many times the district has to access, and I can tell you that it is many times a day throughout the year. Teachers are constantly updating their files with PDPs they've earned and courses they've completed. Superintendents are constantly monitoring and updating licenses, handling discipline issues, and evaluating staff. There are query checks and required trainings that need to be monitored and verified. The number of times that these files need to be accessed requires them to be within easy reach. This year, with all the demands in our school district to reopen and operate during a global pandemic, it is difficult enough without adding extra hardship on a system that's already working as best as it can during historic times. In bold print, it reads, "Please do not centralize the personnel records of the school department. It will greatly impact our district. Thank you, Cynthia Kwasinski." So I would like to propose that we strike the section regarding centralizing records, and we can revisit the matter at a time as we can revisit anything that goes with regard to the charter. By striking by putting the language in as written, we are committing to a centralized system without a full analysis by the school department and their legal counsel. I would like to have us see that before we move forward to put this in concrete in a charter.
Okay. Hang on, Councilor Ripp. Mayor?
Yes, so one, a charter is an overall framework and umbrella of how the city operates. How it exactly operates in detail changes because working conditions change. And I would also just remind the body that I am a member of the school committee, and I'm well aware of the operations of the school committee and made it a point to attend meetings that happened over the course of a year. That was also publicized in the Gazette and all over Facebook. Second, in school districts, which I used to work in, the exact documents that the chair of the school committee refers to, as well as Dr. LeClaire, are easily handled, and one would say should be handled under the ELAR system, which is the educational licensing program that is mandated by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. If there were to be discipline of a particular employee, that would be vital for the city to know, because as well, the city is the ultimate arbiter of the personnel records under MGL, which certainly supersedes MGL dealing specifically with school committees. There is one personnel file, and that is for the protection of all the employees, regardless of what personnel file, what department that they work for. That said, consideration of this section with the language other that's before us, I will veto, as is my right under the procedures of reviewing the charter.
Excuse me, Mayor, what did you just say?
I will veto.
If
there is changes in this language in reconsideration, I will veto those changes.
Well, I think your process, unfortunately, this is new language, and the council can amend this document and remove it. So we both have, in other words, you could remove it yourself or we could remove it. But if we remove it, you don't have the right to put it back. That's just not how.
I certainly agree, but if this body reconsiders it or extends this process further, I would just want to say that any changes to the existing language, the original language, I will veto.
Okay. But just to answer Councilor Kwasinski, when I make a motion to approve, you may
understood.
You may request an amendment which removes, what is this article? 6.5, number 8, if you wish to do so. That's what's allowed, of course, this evening when we get to there.
I understand. Thank
Okay.
you.
Does anybody else have a question? I don't know if the public's done or not. Or...
Any other comments? I see, Sarah, that you're back. Are you here for this issue? If so, go ahead and unmute.
Oh, pardon me. I just wanted to provide some background, but it was already covered, and I should have unraised my hand. Pardon me.
Okay, thank you.
I saw Tom Peak.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't heard from Councilor Gomez. Go, Councilor Gomez. I'm sorry.
Thank you,
Gomez?
Madam. Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to say thanks for the people who was involved with this review. You know, the committee spent over a year talking about all this. All the meeting was public, and then the Rules Committee saw it, and all those committees meeting was public too. And I have to say thanks to all the city councils and the residents who was part of the committee. I just want to say one thing before Councilor Risk make a motion to approve this new language. Is section 2.3, the prohibitions. That didn't came from me. I just want to put it that there because it could affect myself. The idea never came from me. By the way, I'm planning to, for that section 2.3, I'm planning to abstain if it is that possible. Instead of voting section for section, I will abstain in section 2.3. So you guys know, I'm the varsity coach for softball at the high school, and I'm planning to keep doing it for free because I'm okay with that. But could affect myself? And for those reasons, I'm going to be abstaining in section 2.3. Thank you.
Madam President, we were going to vote the entire document. Do you not want to do it article by article?
So, Councilor Gomez, if we voted the charter in total, would you likely abstain then?
I really want to vote for the charter because I was working with the committee for a year. I was part of it, and then I was part of the conversation at the rules. But I just want to abstain in that particular section, 2.3.
Can we just pull that one out and vote on the rest in total and just pull that one out?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we vote section 2, article 2 differently than we vote the remaining articles? And we can vote article 2.
First to approve article 2.3, and the council could vote for that with one abstention, and then I'll make a motion to approve the rest of the document.
Correct.
Second motion.
But before you do that, I want to do another call for comments and questions. I saw, Councilor Peak, you had your hand up. Did you have another comment?
I did. Well, maybe it's a comment, maybe it's a question. When it comes to this record stuff, I want to make sure we're getting this right. But what I guess I'm a little bit confused about is like, is there like what is the actual what's the actual risk here? You know, I mean, is it really just about the time it would take to walk down like a flight of stairs to access the file, or is there like a communication issue? Are these things digitized at all to the point that they can be viewed from somewhere? Like I just don't understand exactly what, like, this is clearly something that people feel a bunch of people feel very strongly about. And I'm just trying to understand like what the actual challenge would be about centralization, and why this is like, why it's something that people feel so strongly about.
I guess Allison has to answer that one.
Thank you. Sure, I'm happy to provide some comments to that. I will start with some of the things the mayor articulated. I am in charge of licensure for the district to make sure that every educator that we have in the district is licensed. And obviously, We keep up with that in a database. But if I am to check on a new employee's license, if I want to check to see if someone is certified in multiple areas, if I want to expedite a license, obviously I would go into ELAR, as the mayor articulated, which is an electronic system that I have access to at the Department of Education. I'm the only one in the district that can expedite a license. In order to look up a license, I need either the license number or a social security number. So obviously those are not necessarily, I'm not going to put a social security number in a database. I would need to look in the personnel file for that information. That's also information that we don't email electronically between people for safety reasons. When you talk about discipline, I don't disagree that there are many instances when the personnel department at City Hall would need to look at discipline information. But when you talk about personnel and discipline, you're basically looking at progressive discipline, which means that you may start off at the first infraction with a letter or a verbal reprimand. And then if there's a second infraction, you go to the next level of discipline in the next. So obviously, if I am involved in discipline at my level as a superintendent, then I would need to get a look at the entire personnel file to see what discipline has been, received previous to my getting involved. And so I would need to have context around that. I look at the pay information. I set salary. So then when there's a salary adjustment, I take a look at that and adjust that salary. So there are millions of instances every day when I am looking at personnel files. And, it is under lock and key, but I can easily say to my administrative assistant, will you pull X file or Y file for me? Another example would be, it wasn't brought up yet, but queries and fingerprinting come under my purview. My license is on the line as the school superintendent to ensure that people are fingerprinted that are coming into our public schools. And if there are any issues on a fingerprint report, I review them and I put my initials on them so that if there are legal issues later on, they'll know that it was me that signed off on those fingerprints. I do tons and tons of fingerprints. If you can imagine the building project right now and understand that every single person working on that building project has been fingerprinted. I have over 250 staff. I'm the largest department in the city right now. So yes, some of it is a matter of me or my assistant running up and down the stairs, which seems like an extra additional step on top of all the other things that I'm already doing. Could we do it? Yes. But when I have the largest personnel department in the entire city, I should be able to have access to the majority of those files up in my department. The last thing I would say is there's, and this is through no fault of anyone's, but there is a huge turnover in the city HR department. I think we're currently I'm on my 6th HR director since I started in my position here, which is a little over 2 years ago. So, I have the continuity of having the context. Also, in my previous role, I was an HR director for over 10 years. So I understand issues around arbitration and grievances and mediations that, I'm often informing an HR director at the city side what steps need to happen. And I'm the one that's involved in arbitrations, in mediations, in grievances at the school building level, in the school department. So yes, I would, if there was a personnel director that was part of the issue at that point in time, I would be picking up the phone, having conversations with them. But usually I'm the one that has the context of what the issue is because I am intimately involved in what's going on in the schools. So that's just a few examples that I can provide to you, Tom. I'm happy to put anything in writing for you, but that just hopefully gives you a little taste of it.
Go ahead.
I certainly do hear what the superintendent is saying. However, the job of the charter is to and this review was to align our city overall operations with the law and also for the best protection of the city. The fact that there should only be one personnel file that is held by a department of the city that holds the liability is also for the protection of the employee and privacy. Every other department head has their files in the personnel department for their employees. There are other employee positions that require fingerprinting, and I do hear the superintendent's issue with the number of people in absolutely in her department. I would also say that the other departments, because they have the files, we look at them and are encouraged to look at them by our outside auditors for patterns of hiring or discharge from the district. And with the school department, our largest department as far as employees, that's very difficult to do if the files aren't under the lock and key of the personnel department, which is legally responsible. Department heads who have licenses sign off on all sorts of paperwork. And if they do so in good faith, they are protected under the insurance policy the city holds. For any department not to be following basic HR laws and principles puts the employees as well as the administrators of that department at risk. And my job is to eliminate as much risk as possible. I hear the operational difficulties and challenges that not just Superintendent Leclerc, but myself have experienced. But again, that's operational. And what will happen in 5 years between school and city and any pending legal or unfairness claims can't be predicted. And that's why this document has the language it does. I've also put a request forward to the school committee and I think the city council to earnestly look at some consolidation of the HR department to have one for the city. But I do think that's operational. That's outside the review of this committee, and the charter language is at a higher purview.
Anybody else? Peg?
Is there anyone from the public? Anyone else from the council? Not seeing anyone.
So should I make a motion?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you know, if there are amendments to be made, then we will address those as and if they come forward.
So I will make two motions. The first motion is to honor Omar Gomez's request and separate out Article 2-3 so that he may abstain. And then I'll make a motion for the entire charter. After that, if a counselor wishes to amend by removing a change recommended by the committee, he or she may do so. So we're looking at 2-3. I move that the City Council approve the changes to the charter as recommended by the Charter Review Committee for Article 2, Section 3, prohibitions, as written before us. I need a
Second.
Motion and a second to approve Article 2, Section 3, prohibitions in the city charter. Any further discussion? Barbara?
Peg Coniff,
Yes.
Salem Derby,
Aye.
Omar Gomez,
Same.
JP Kaczynski, JP,
Give us a thumbs up or something. Okay.
was that it? I can't see him.
A thumbs up, he said aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Bill Lynch,
Yes.
Dan Rist,
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Aye.
Owen Zarin.
Yes.
Motion passes on Article 2, Section 3 as amended, as changed by the Charter Committee.
I now move that the City Council approve the the entire charter revisions as submitted by the remaining charter revisions as submitted by the Charter Review Committee and as amended by the city attorney.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the remaining articles of the city charter. Any further discussion? Councillor Kwasinski.
I move to amend by removing section 6.5, number 8.
So only number 8, JP, only number 8 from 6.5? Just that one number? Okay. All right. Do we have a second?
Does anybody have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second to remove from the new charter section 6, number 8. Was that what it was, Dan? Section 6?
6.5, number 8.
6.5, number 8.
This entire, this one here.
Okay. Any further discussion on that amendment? Okay. Barbara?
Derby?
No.
Is that a no?
Yes.
Ew.
Yeah, we've got an echo going on.
Omar Gomez?
No.
JP Kaczynski?
Aye.
Bill Lynch?
No.
Tom Peak?
No.
Dan Rist?
No.
Lindsay Rothschild?
Abstain.
Abstain, okay, sorry. Owen Zarrett?
No.
Peg Coniff?
No. We have 1 to 8 to 7 to, I can't even do the math. Motion does not pass. Any further discussion on the main motion, which was to approve the entirety of the remaining articles within the charter? No further discussion? Barbara?
Omar Gomez?
Aye.
JP Kaczynski?
No.
Bill Lynch?
Yes.
Tom Peak?
Aye.
Dan Rist?
Yes.
Lindsay Rothschild?
Yes.
Owen Zarrett?
Yes.
Peg Coniff?
Yes.
Salem Derby?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. The charter as presented by the Charter Commission has been passed with no further, I'm sorry, Barbara, what?
7 in favor, 2 opposed?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, well, 1 abstain. Did we have 2 opposed? Who was the
Only
second
1
opposed? 1 opposed.
Lindsay?
8 to 1. No, she was in favor.
Aye.
Okay.
8 to 1.
I just want to thank the council. This has been a long process for your patience in this. It now goes to the city attorney. He has to put it in legislative language. And as I mentioned before, we keep finding typos and misspellings. I'm sure that he and his resources, as well as Barbara, will find those typos. If there's anything that's extensive that the city attorney finds that we have to review again, I'm sure he'll let us know. I also want to thank the mayor, because without her approval, none of this would happen. So the committee's work is done. Thank you all. I move that the public hearings be closed.
Second.
Motion second to close the public hearings. Any discussion? Barbara?
JP Kaczynski?
Aye.
Yes, aye.
Bill Lynch?
Yes.
Tom Peak?
Yes.
Dan Rist?
Yes.
Lindsay Rothschild?
Yes.
Owen Zarrett?
Yes.
Peg Coniff?
Yes.
Salem Derby?
Aye.
Omar Gomez?
Aye.
Motion passes. The public hearing is now closed, almost in record time. We will now move on to continue the public speak portion of the agenda. I see about 5 hands still raised, so we will move right into that. Jean Francis, if you would like to make a comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to respond or talk about what happened last night in the subcommittee as well. And there are things that have come to light just this afternoon, and I believe that every city councilor has received these too. The threats that were made to Gabby Stevenson. And so I think in view of that and the more information that we all have at this time, I believe that JP and Bill owe Gabby Stevenson an apology for how they interrogated her last night. And my second thing is that I would like to ask Owen Zarrett to step down from the city council, because he does not represent the council or this city in a way that I feel is respectful, in that he knew about these threats to Gabby Stevenson and did nothing about them and basically dismissed her and did not even show up at the meeting last night. So that's all I have to say. Thank you all for all the work you do. And Tom, I know you might not be happy about this because I understand that you and Owen are good buddies, but I hope that you're able to hear what I'm saying and how other people feel about Owen Zarrett as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jean. Carolyn.
Oh, okay, getting all my parts going. You can hear me, right?
Yes. Yep.
This is Carolyn Cushing. I am here strongly in support of Myra.
Carolyn, can you tell us where you live? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I live on Main Street.
Okay.
I strongly support Myra Ojemi and Gabby Stevenson's candidacy for the Community Relations Commission. They are well qualified. They are already working on these issues. I went to last night's meeting and I was surprised and disturbed at what I saw, the process that they had to go through. That was a process unlike others that I have observed. And I imagine that the current CRC members had to go through. And, people of color and women have to go through more hoops, have to explain themselves more, have to be perfect in all they do before they can volunteer to serve the city. So that was very disturbing to me. I wrote a long letter that I think you all have. I don't know if everyone had a chance to read it. I'll jump into the middle because it's long and I'm trying to pay attention to time. What happened with Gabby, it seemed like an interrogation at times. That's what it felt like. It was disturbing and problematic in a number of ways. Number one, this is how I heard Councilor Lynch's comments. I don't know exactly what he meant, but this is kind of the implication that if people in the community object to a CRC nomination, then that person should not be appointed. If that were so, then no one who took a stand on almost any matter, especially around issues of racism in our current climate, could pass that test. Also, who were the people objecting? Could bias have been part of their objection? Are all objections that come in to be taken equally? And no one who objected to Myra or Gabby's candidacy came to the meeting to speak in person. There were a whole bunch of us, 12 or more, who spoke for both of them, and they weren't there. And that the objections of some unknown people could keep a highly qualified person from serving on the CRC is not acceptable. The council needs to play a mediating role, assess the motivations of critique being offered, stand up for those who are putting themselves out there to come and serve the city. Number two, and Kay spoke a little bit to this, Gabby raising the issue of the thin blue line being perceived as a symbol of white supremacy should not preclude her from being on the committee. It should recommend her to being on a committee that is supposed to help us deal and move forward and have dialogue on these difficult subjects. And I included some references. The nonpartisan Marshall Project has a review of the history of the thin blue line flag and its use by white supremacists, which may not be known by everyone, may not be known by some of the police who fly it, but it's definitely there. I was inspired by the story of the chief of police in Middletown, Connecticut, who stopped using the flag after he listened to people at the protests and heard the urgency of their message. He had empathy. We talked a lot about empathy last night. So white people, we get uncomfortable when issues of race are raised. I feel my body tighten when racism comes up. But our discomfort should not be allowed to shut down conversations that are needed. We need to be with our discomfort and still stay engaged. That is our problem as white people, not Gabby or any other person of color who raises these issues.
Carolyn, just a couple of seconds, I'm sorry.
Okay. But Gabby has since been in conversations with the mayor, police chief, city councilors, shows that she can raise difficult topics and keep engaged. We just have to match her.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you.
She's doing this work already in committees with the mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mindy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Mindy Jenkins. I live in Precinct 4. I wanted to speak to the council tonight after I also witnessed the interrogation of 2 women of color who were asking to be appointed to the Community Relations Committee. In particular, the line of questioning toward Gabby Stevenson and what she had to endure. I found even the question on empathy that was started out with to be wretched, vile, considering moments before the councilors learned of the threats that both candidates have faced in our city. What higher form of empathy can there be than to be a woman of color who has experienced racism and sexism in her own community to still want to act in service of that community? These women who are beyond capable and who have already worked tirelessly with city officials to make Easthampton a better and more welcoming place to live were publicly questioned about their integrity and their ability to serve our city. No other candidate for the CRC was put under this same scrutiny. In fact, I don't believe any of our volunteer city officials have been questioned in this manner. We should be embracing the BIPOC members of our community. We should be grateful that despite the hatred they endure in their very own community, that they are willing to educate us, guide us, advise us on matters that we simply cannot fully understand as white people. We seem to use the terms diversity and inclusion ad nauseum without really knowing or understanding what they mean. We say we welcome diversity, and yet this is the way we treat people of color in our community. At last night's meeting, I witnessed a sad display of whiteness, sexism, racism, intimidation tactics, and abuse of power that left me embarrassed, heartbroken, and infuriated. There is power in drawing upon diverse backgrounds, talents, and approaches that are necessary to drive meaningful change. Isn't that what we want? Easthampton desperately needs people like this on our city community committees. We should all be grateful for the courage these women have shown in stepping forward in an effort to serve our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Pasqualina. And if you could just let us know the street you live on, Pasqualina.
Hi, I'm Pasqualina Azzarello. I live in Precinct 5.
Thank you.
I am here to first express my utmost support of Myra Oyudemi and Gabby Stevenson joining the Community Relations Committee. I've been working with them for months. They are exceptional individuals. They are beyond qualified to serve those roles and to serve our city and our community. I also was present for the appointments meeting last night and was really disturbed by what happened. I hope that I'm going to ask that every city councilor watch the full video if you haven't done so already, and to really consider the absolutely just incredulous double standard that we have held these 2 women of color to in an appointment. And as someone who works for our city government and has been, gone through many appointments, I have never seen anything like that. And it was painful, honestly, to watch that last night. And I felt like it was a real display of the racism, the systemic racism that all of us community members are coming out and speaking against. That's what we saw. And that's what was painful. And it's really important that we see it for what it is. Think of any member, any current member of the CRC. Can you imagine putting them through that? Can you imagine putting them through that privately? Can you imagine putting them through that publicly? Can you imagine how preposterous it would seem to bring up whether or not someone responded to an email 2 years ago or expressed frustration and disgust because property had been stolen from their home for again and again? Like, all these questions about empathy and like asking again, referring to last night, like Councilmember Lynch and Kwasinski both said individually, what do I tell, the people who sent these emails, who were not in favor of Gabby joining the CRC? And what you tell them is that this is a very qualified person, and we're not going to keep someone from serving our city for reasons like that. It's very simple. Imagine anybody was bringing up the same types of things for any other member of the CRC, and I'm saying that again because I think it makes it very clear the double standard at work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lynn Wanamaker.
Oh, I'm Lynn Wanamaker. I live in Precinct 3, and I'm here for the same reason as many of the people who have already spoken. I was at the Appointments Committee last night, and I was frankly horrified at the lack of empathy that was shown to the candidates, specifically Gabby Stevenson. Empathy was a major topic that the candidates were grilled on, but I witnessed an incredible lack of empathy for Gabby's experience of harassment, threats, and property theft. I heard condemnation of her behavior rather than understanding and empathy for her experience. And specific to her interactions with Councillor Zaret regarding the thin blue line art, which is a known white supremacist symbol, Councillor Kwasinski compared Gabby's response to the standard of conduct that he would hold himself to as an elected official. This comparison missed the mark on 3 counts. First, it failed to take into account the impact of diverse lived experiences, which is exactly why we need to have more diversity in the leadership of our city. Second of all, a private citizen is under nowhere near the same obligation as a city councilor to meet with, a citizen is not under the same obligation to meet with their councilor as a councilor is to be available to their constituents. Yet, as everyone has pointed out, Gabby's engagement with city government over difficult topics as a private citizen with holding no official position has been frankly extraordinary. I can't imagine putting myself in those kinds of conversations over and over again out of the generosity of spirit to improve our city. So even though that was a completely ridiculous comparison, Gabby has proven herself to be somebody that we would be so privileged to have in a position of leadership. And finally, I would hope that anyone, city councilor, Anyone who felt unsafe going into a meeting would follow Gabby's wise example to establish boundaries and conditions for the meeting such that they could be fully present to the conversation and have the hard conversations that we need to have in this city. I think she showed a stunning example and model, again, which qualifies her for leadership. I want to remind the counselors that the findings in the Attorney General's report land very differently if you're in one of the affected groups that was named in that report. I heard last night that report confirmed that racism, anti-immigrant sentiment, and homophobia are systemic patterns in our city. And what that tells me—
And you have just a couple of seconds, Lynn.
It tells people that their experience of coldness, harassment, lack of inclusion are actually not one-offs. They're patterns and they're systemic. And for this reason, we need not just diverse leaders, but we need leaders who understand.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Chloe.
Okay.
Chloe?
Hello.
There you go.
Hear me? Hi.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Chloe Crabb and I live on Park Street. I would like to speak today to support the appointment of Myra and Gabby to the CRC because of their extensive qualifications and their experience with community work. I think it is extremely important to have bilingual Spanish-speaking members on this committee because it's the second most widely spoken language in the U.S. and there are Spanish speakers in Easthampton. Also, community relations is not isolated to our community of Easthampton. It's about our cooperation and collaboration with towns around us. For example, we live 10 to 15 minutes away from Holyoke, where over 50% of the people living there speak Spanish. So I'm today challenging myself and other white people in Easthampton to do more than put a Black Lives Matter sign in front of our yard or as our Zoom background, and instead to take action by uplifting BIPOC voices in our community. When women of color assert their beliefs and white folks respond by tone policing or saying that they need to be nicer in order to exist in this space, that is racist and uncalled for. I challenge all of us to just reflect on that. Both Myra and Gabby have extensive academic and career accomplishments, but I wanted to echo what Myra said before. I believe the most necessary form of knowledge comes from our own lived experiences, and their perspective as women of color are both necessary and important. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Douglas.
Madam President, there's a gentleman, Francis's iPhone. He keeps raising his hand, but he doesn't know how to put it up on the participant thing. Do you see him up in the corner there?
I do.
He's constantly raising his hand.
Okay, go ahead. Can you unmute yourself, Francis? We can't hear you. There you go. Now go ahead.
Sorry, Fran Hendrick Street. I'm technologically challenged, obviously. Okay. And hearing these voices, mine is inconsequential, but I just want to tell you about the bike ride that I took this morning. I'm taking a bike ride because 2 doctors have told me to stay away from any stores or anything like that because I'm 78 years old. I got a hole in my belly. I'm compromised, and they can't do anything about it until there is a vaccine. All right. So anyway, I rode the bike up around through Nantucket Park and up Park Street, and I stopped at the Maple Street School project. That's what the sign says, but I know better than that. It's a new school that they're building. Mm-hmm. I asked the guy if I could take a ride down, and he said, sure, just be careful of other trucks. Okay, but I've been concerned because I have never missed a vote in my lifetime. Not one have I ever missed. But now the doctors don't want me going to the polling booth. And now I see that today I saw that you're going to have all of the voters go into the high school. That's my concern. I think you ought to shut down the construction for the day and let people vote where they voted for, what's it been, 30 years maybe, that 40 years that Whitebrook School has been there. And I know that's not going to happen. Yes, I applied for a mail-in ballot as soon as Galvin had sent the request out to us. I haven't gotten it yet. I hope I do get it, because I want my vote to count. And just in closing, I heard all those other voices, and I hope you're all wrong. I hope there is not systemic racism. I certainly have no racists in me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Kim. Sorry to put pause on that for a second, but go ahead,
Hey,
Kim.
can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm Kim Douglas, Precinct 2, Main Street, and I would like to share my experience knowing Gabby Stevenson. We worked together about 10 years ago at Apollo Grill. Anybody who can bartend knows how to be empathetic, compassionate, works well under pressure, and I'm now honored to call Gabby a friend. She has taught me so much. I was raised by two bleeding heart liberals, and I thought I didn't have a racist bone in my body, but I'm biased. I didn't even know it was there. And I thank Gabby for sharing her experience with me and making me a better person. And I think that's what Easthampton needs, and it'll be such a disservice if she's not on the committee. She's incredibly empathetic. She's incredibly strong. She's very opinionated. And I think it's time for us to take our head out of the sand and admit that there is racism in this city. You know, there's people saying there's no such thing as white privilege, that, my best friends are black, all that. And we just have to open our eyes and see. I mean, just that meeting last night, I thought they were being very condescending to Gabby. And she's an incredibly accomplished, smart, strong woman. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Jason Montgomery.
Hello. So I don't think I need to reiterate what everyone else has said. Oh, sorry. My name is Jason Montgomery. I'm in Precinct 2.
Thank you.
To reiterate all the things that have been said about why Gabby Stevenson and Myra Oyedeme belong on the CRC. This is not a question about not raising controversy. There are people who have raised their hand to talk, and I'm not going to point them out, who think that if they raise enough controversy around these appointments, that automatically disqualifies these individuals from serving. In fact, they jumped off of this call to go and post terribly cut together videos from last night's meeting of myself and of Gabby on a public forum Facebook page in the hopes of just stirring up controversy. Guess what? That is part of the systemic problem of racism and discrimination here in our city. If you say to a black or brown person, you cannot ever be upset, you have to be exceptional for us to value and give credence to your opinion, there is going to be no diversity and no inclusion on the CRC. Inclusion and diversity means that you take us as we are and you accept our role in society, and you accept that there have been difficulties, there have been oppression, there has been hatred, and we have to figure out a way through it as a community. Gabby is qualified. Gabby is beyond qualified to serve on this committee. She was a kindergarten teacher. And you honestly going to look at me as city council people and tell me that you do not believe a public school kindergarten teacher can't deal with a diverse group of opinions? Have you met parents? I got 2 kids. if there's no more, like, I can't handle the parents at my kids' school because they're so diverse amongst their opinions. And that's me making a joke. I love the parents at my kids' school. But the point is, she is exceedingly qualified to represent our community on a volunteer committee. Sometimes equality isn't justice. Sometimes justice is doing the thing that isn't consistent, but is correct. So I'm asking you now, with my 5 seconds left, to do the right thing and confirm these two powerful members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. That was good timing. Perfect. Jay Andrzejczyk.
Jay Andrzejczyk, 64 Division Street, Easthampton, Massachusetts. There have been 5 generations of Andrzejczyks that have lived in Easthampton. Ms. Stevenson informed me last night, Ms. Stevenson from Texas informed me last night that blank off Easthampton means something completely different than blank you Easthampton or blank Easthampton. I think it's very important for this council, this city, and everyone involved to truly consider if instead of Easthampton, that was someone's name. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Louise, I'm sorry. Louise Jacob. Louise?
Yeah, can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Peg. Wow. Okay, I'm Louise Jacob. I live in Ward 3. I'm a resident of Easthampton, and I only watched the recording of the Appointments Committee today, and I'm still absorbing it. And a lot of people have spoken about okay, sorry, I'm trying to put my thoughts together, but there are a few reactions I've got. First, the obvious issue of racism. The fact that nobody who's on the CRC right now, and I've watched a lot of their meetings, has faced the critical, the in-depth job interview type interrogations and criticisms like these two candidates did. I suspect some of them might not have been improved or might have withdrawn in the face of such scrutiny. Is this a new procedure for all council committees? Is it only the CRC? That's something I'd like to leave with you. You've got the obvious other question, is it racism? Make your own minds up. Second, I want to express gratitude that Myra and Gabby have stayed the course because, and I'll say personally, there was talk about whether the committee is welcoming or not. I would find their presence make the committee a much more welcoming place for myself if I ever chose to approach it. Third question, what does the CRC, what does the council, was that the bell? What does the CRC want from what does the council want from the CRC? Because much last night was made of Gabby using the F word once. It was said some residents find that offensive, it would make them unwelcome, and it was implied that if anybody objects, a nomination does not go through. And to state the obvious, you're never going to fulfill those vacancies. You're not going to find a candidate who would be unoffensive, both to residents who seriously complain about a single swear word, and to residents like me, and I'm thinking of some children who are family members of mine, who consider the use of the N-word that still seems to be not particularly problematic in this city, and we consider more offensive. So at some point, what are you going to do with that? And finally, back to different standards. Last night, a third person was up for reappointment. The chair said that this candidate didn't respond when he reached out to her for information about her application, but he recommended her for approval anyway, because he'd been able to see her when he was invited to a party her committee threw for grantees last year. And without going into that, this is different standards. Racist is also different standards for the old and the newcomers. And it's what makes so
Louise,
many of us
we're out of time, Louise. Want to wrap it up?
Okay, continue to feel unwelcome in this city for so many reasons. And please consider if you want to widen your welcome or not when you consider the suitability of these two eminently qualified women of color who are candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Anyone else for public speak? I don't see any other hands raised. All right. Going once, going twice. Okay. We will move on with our agenda then. Thank you all for the words. Appreciate it. And we will now move on to communication from elected officials, boards, and committees. Any comments or anyone like to speak in that vein? Councilor Zaret?
Yes, thank you, President Conniff. Sorry, I'm just pulling something up so I can find the exact details. I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that we are entering the Jewish high holidays with Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, starting at sundown this Friday and continuing into the first day on Saturday and the second day on Sunday. And that culminates in Yom Kippur, which is September 28th, which is the Day of Atonement. Typically, through my role administrating the Jewish community of Easthampton, we have traditionally held what's called a tashlich ceremony at the pond, where you ceremoniously cast bread into the water to cast away sins and to reflect. But I did not organize that this year because of COVID, and I was concerned about, even if I was able to do so in a well-intentioned way, have too many people gathering closely together at the pond. But I do encourage people individually to do so, and I can certainly, I'll include some information on the Jewish Community of Easthampton Facebook page. These high holidays are an opportunity to reflect. They say that on Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, that the Book of Life is opened, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed. We talk a lot about a word called tshuva, which means returning or reflecting, and certainly another word, chesed, which talks about compassion. This is certainly opportunities for everyone, Jews and non-Jews alike, to reflect on their year and the year ahead, and think about how we can certainly be better in the work that we do, but also how we have wronged others, and how we can work together for what we call tikkun olam, which is repair of the world. So Shana Tova, Happy New Year to everybody, certainly the Jewish community and locally and at large. And then I also wanted to quickly call attention to an event that's actually happening September 19th, which happens to be the first day of Rosh Hashanah. The Native American Intertribal Council of Western Massachusetts is holding a native flag raising in Springfield. It's at 12 p.m. from 12 to 2 at City Hall. There'll be traditional native music and some education on the indigenous people, certainly of our land, but hopefully locally as well. These are customs, traditions, languages that are slowly being lost due to essentially taking of land that did not belong to us. And I think it's important to observe these customs and traditions as much as we can, both to preserve them and to reflect on what we have taken. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zaret. Councilor Derby, your hand was in the mist.
It was in the mist, yeah, I know. I just want to give a a hearty shout out to the citizens of Easthampton. I've been noticing since the Board of Health put out their mandatory mask order downtown and on the bike path, and requiring people to have a mask and use it when they go by people on sidewalks. It seems like compliance has really, really increased, and I'm hoping that people are just getting used to this, because I don't think we're going to be able to ease up on it anytime soon, but it does make a difference. All the research shows, all the science shows that it's probably one of the most impactful things we can do besides just staying home. So I just wanted to say thank you to all the residents for wearing a mask.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Derby. Anyone else? Okay. Barbara, do you want to give a brief summarization of the request to change the polling place?
Sure. Well, I'm throwing it in your lap because it is the City Council's decision.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. It became pretty clear to me after the September 1st primary that Whitebrook Middle School is pretty rough right now. And even if the driveway is completed for the November election, the parking lot is probably still going to be pretty rough. And the handicap parking in the loop part in front of the school wasn't really clear to a lot of people that they could park there. The school itself inside was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. But I'm just really concerned. There have been some complaints filed. But it's something to consider for several reasons. The safety, I really worry about people with it getting darker early, walking out in the parking lot. I just don't want anybody to have anything happen. Moving all the precincts is disruptive. Even though it's nice for everybody to be in one place, it does make it so the precincts will be closer together. Even though I think with 3 in the gym and 2 in the cafeteria, we could probably do it. Only if there's no school, because the parking lot's not real big. The state does allow precincts to be consolidated. The City Council has to issue a report with, I gave all the details on that report, and you can't make a move until you've issued that report and it's been made public. So I just want to bring it up, and I think you need to discuss whether this is a good idea. And I mean, I think it has to be until the new school is finished and we know what we're looking at the new school. So.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara. We are not going to ask Barb any questions at this point. This is going to be moved to a subcommittee, at which point all those questions can be asked. But thank you for that update, Barb. Really appreciate it. And we will move that, Councilor Peak, during the rules update. Councilor Rist, I saw your hand up.
I just wanted to mention, because you skipped over Vice President.
No, we haven't gotten to it yet.
Barbara asked me to mention that you got an electronic ballot today. It was pretty cool. The whole ballot that's going to be sent out, she didn't get the one that's going to be mailed, but it does have the CPA exemption language right there as question 3. And I'm kind of happy that we finally got it on the ballot. And there is also a presidential election on that ballot. It's interesting. Anyway, thank you, Barbara, for bringing that up, and I want to let everybody know that we did get it on the ballot. The state put it there. Thank you.
Great. Okay, I just wanted to wrap up. Any other councilors have anything to report? Okay. Mayor LaChapelle.
Good evening. I'd like to start, even before pandemic, really highly valued and often in the background, members of our community provide direct support to folks for all different sorts of reasons. But overall, because it helps them access our city and the services and also leisure that they want to find in Easthampton and in other places in the Pioneer Valley. And it's all because of the direct support workers. This is direct support Professional Week, and I have a proclamation to read. Worked on this language with Susan LaPointe from Riverside Industries. City of Easthampton, Massachusetts Direct Support Professional Week proclamation. Whereas direct support professionals, direct care workers, personal attendants, in-home support workers, and paraprofessionals are the primary providers of publicly funded long-term supports and services for millions of individuals. And whereas a direct support professional provides essential support to keep an individual with disabilities connected to the family and community of the individual, and whereas direct support professionals enable individuals with disability to live meaningful and productive lives, and whereas the City of Easthampton recognizes the important role direct support professionals have in improving the quality of life and care for the people in the city. And now, therefore, I, Nicole LaChapelle, the duly elected mayor of the City of Easthampton, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby officially proclaim September 13th through the 19th, 2020 to be Direct Support Professionals Week, given with my hand on the 14th day of September 2020. And again, thank you to all of the direct support professionals that really help our city to be the place that it is and make sure that it's accessible as possible to as many people as possible. I also just want, we've been doing, there's been a lot of work going on and updates around the schools. Next week, our school committee meeting is changed to Wednesday, September 23rd at 6 o'clock. The reason for that is that we will be looking at health metrics for the city and surrounding communities and considering taking the next step of students actually attending schools and buildings and getting support to high needs students. So Wednesday, September 23rd is the school committee meeting. It's usually on Tuesdays, but it's Wednesday next week. Also, Sunday, September 20th at 10 a.m. on Williston Avenue, we'll have a ribbon cutting for the temporary bike lane on Williston Avenue. Valley Bike will be there with passes and coupons to ride the e-assist bikes for those who are interested. We're thinking that there might be a little bicycle parade from Williston Ave up to Nonotuck Park. And that's a part of the Shared Streets Grant where we're doing the bike lane, improving the safety of the entrance of Nonotuck Park, and also putting a crosswalk with the electronic blinkers over on Pleasant Street that goes across to Berkeley, and that connects the Pleasant Green neighborhood in a more safe way to our bike path, as well to Millside Park. And President Conniff, that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Now we're going to move on to the reports of standing committees. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to start with appointments, and then we will move on to the regular flow, starting with finance. So let us start with appointments. Councillor Lynch.
Thank you, Madam President. The appointments meeting met last night, as we all are aware, and we had 3 appointments on our agenda. So I will go through those one by one. The first one was we review Rachel Phillips, the chair to the Cultural Council, reappointment with a term expiration of 8/2/2023. The committee voted 3-0 to approve the recommendation for the reappointment. So right now, I would like to make a motion to approve the reappointment of Rachel Phillips to the Cultural Council with a term expiration of 8/2/2023.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve Rachel Phillips to the Cultural Council. Any further discussion? Barbara?
Bill Lynch,
Yes.
Tom Peak,
Yes.
Dan Rist,
Yes.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Yes.
Owen Zaret,
Yes.
Peg Coniff,
Yes.
Salem Derby,
Yes.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Counselor Lynch?
Thank you, Madam President. Next, we reviewed Myra Odemi for the Community Relations Committee with a term expiration at 12/31/2022. And the committee recommended the mayoral appointment 3-0. So right now I'd like to make a motion to appoint Myra Odemi to the Community Relations Committee with a term expiration 12/31/2022.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve Myra Odemi to the Community Relations Committee. Any further discussion? Counselor Zaret?
Thank you, President Coniff. I just wanted to say I apologize that I was not able to be at the meeting last night. I had a prior commitment that superseded this appointment. I had an opportunity to speak with candidate Oyedemi. She was very kind to set some time on a weekend and actually even pulled over to stop and talk to me because I do not know her that well. Obviously, she's eminently qualified based on her work as a speech pathologist, and we had a very nice conversation about her vision for the city. Specifically, there are many different populations in the city, and how do we kind of try to pull everyone together, especially the people on the margins. And so I'm very happy to recommend her for this committee.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Rothschild?
I just also want to speak in support of Myra Oyedemi. I've spoken with her personally about issues in the city. I've seen her present at various city council meetings and committee meetings. She has recently moved to Easthampton, and I can tell that obviously she's investing in her community to want to take part at the level that she's taking part. I've always found I just want to thank her for stepping forward, and I fully support her stepping onto this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, Barbara?
Tom Peak,
Yes.
Dan Rust,
Yes.
Lindsay Rothschild,
Yes.
Owen Zaret,
Yes.
Peg Coniff,
Yes.
Salem Derby,
Yes.
Omar Gomez,
Aye.
JP Kaczynski,
Yes.
Bill Lynch.
Yes.
Motion passes. Myra is a member of the CRC. Counselor Lynch?
Thank you, Madam President. Finally, we reviewed the mayoral appointment for Gabriella Stevenson to the Community Relations Committee, term expiration 12/31/2022. And the committee voted 1 in favor, 1 no, and 1 abstention. So with that, I would like to make a motion to approve Gabriella Stevenson to the Community Relations Committee with a term expiration of 12/31/2022.
Second.
Motion and second to approve Gabriella Stevenson to the Community Relations Committee. Any further discussion? Counselor Rothschild?
I did watch the full video. I wasn't able to attend last night. I did find it problematic. I did find it troubling. I found the questioning of use of language, that a lot of this has been brought up, but in our culture, we silence women who speak up. This is just how it is. When women speak up, they're silenced by harassment, intimidation, and they're given a hard time if they do speak up. When Gabby spoke up about the flag in our city and how it made her feel, the gift from Councilor Zaret, she was publicly harassed, shamed. I think you've all gotten emails with the kind of discussion, abusive, sexual, expletive assaults on her. This is a form of harassment to silence women. I encourage my fellow counselors to not give in to this harassment and to this hysteria. and uphold women's voices, uphold people of color's voices. When someone says that something makes them feel uncomfortable, when something makes someone feel unsafe, it is our role not to explain why it should not make them feel unsafe or explain why it doesn't matter. Our job is to listen. And that's exactly the kind of lived experience and different perspective that we need on the Community Relations Committee. Despite this harassment, Gabby is still stepping forward to participate in our democracy in our city. She worked in the last city council campaign for Laura Douglas. She's showed up at committee meetings. She's showed up at subcommittee meetings. She's met with me personally. She's active in a need is not enough. And whatever people in our city think of this organization is participating in democracy in our city with their heart and mind to make this city a better place and more equitable for all our citizens. So I encourage my fellow councilors to uphold her voice, not to be part of the silencing, and to vote in support of her nomination to this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Peak.
So I hate to say this, what I'm about to say. I have to abstain from this one. Gabby and I share a state government employer. When I first ran for the council, I made a promise to that employer that I would abstain from anything where there could be an appearance of a conflict of interest. After thinking this over, despite having some very strong opinions on the subject, I cannot in good faith say that a vote on a coworker, even someone that I don't directly work with, could not be interpreted as a conflict of interest. And so I'm going to have to sit this one out. And it sucks. And I know that a lot of people are going to look at that as saying it was me copping out on a controversial and difficult vote. And I understand that, but it's what I have to do. I do just want to say broadly that, and I love you all. I have my coworker, my colleagues. We have a great relationship. It's not about, I'm not calling anyone out. I'm not anything like that. This process, which began with the first round of CRC appointments, and with one of those appointments having made some fairly controversial statements, we at that time made a decision to that this committee was, because of the sensitive issues that it was going to discuss, we were going to have to be really careful about sort of the skill set of the people involved. I think that was a noble decision. There's also a part of me that's troubled by the way that that's played out recently. I don't know if we have a consistent rubric that we're using to evaluate these things. And I don't know if the process as it has evolved is fair or productive, and it concerns me. And it also it concerns me because I feel like the sort of discussions that we have about candidates, whether I would support that candidate or not, I voted no to two candidates. With very different politics for this committee so far. I get concerned about the way that it might appear to many, including to myself sometimes, like we're litigating about people's characters in a public forum for a volunteer post. I don't have a good idea of what we should be doing differently. I don't have a solution, and nothing that I'm going to say tonight is going to fix this. But if this committee is going to continue to exist and to find its feet and to figure out what its role is in the city, these conversations are going to continue to happen. I don't like the way that this is going, and I'd really challenge everybody on the council and on the CRC to think about this process and what we can do better, because this just sucks and I don't like it. And that's going to be it for me. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Peak. Anyone else? Councilor Zarrett?
I just wanted to take an opportunity to apologize to candidate Stevenson for certainly any harassment she experienced on behalf of an action that I took, obviously not to encourage harassment against her, but certainly fallout from that discussion, that dynamic. Certainly I'll just speak for myself really quickly that, and I think my colleagues can say, and maybe I'm wrong, that I would certainly never do anything intentionally to hurt anybody, and certainly never do anything for the city that intentionally was harmful to people in the city. There's no place for harassment, cyberbullying, racism, etc. And I'm sorry that was something that happened from that situation. What did frustrate me during that time was I saw it as an opportunity to learn and listen, and I reached out multiple times in order to do so, and those opportunities were rebuffed. And I understand the frustration around that situation, but I really wanted to engage, and it's both important for me to hear potentially what I may have done wrong, and to learn and to make inroads and build bridges rather than burn them. And so that I found that situation to be frustrating, and I was concerned of that ongoing dynamic. And I apologize also if my actions or actions surrounding what I've done have made people feel, this applicant feel unsafe. It's certainly not my intention. And I would appeal to my colleagues to say that that is not something that I feel is within the fabric of my being. But at the same time, I'm not silencing someone who has experienced that from me. And I think in some way, mediated or otherwise, there's an opportunity for a discussion here and learning on my part, again, to build and not burn bridges. But there were concerns that were raised for me during some of these dynamics. Again, lost opportunities to engage and understand and have constructive conversations around really difficult topics. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there anyone else? Councilor Derby?
Thank you, Madam President. I think first off, I want to make a profound apology to Gabby for what had happened to her. And I did attend the meeting last night. I was multitasking. Today was my first day of school, so I didn't have my camera on because I was working on some school stuff. And I had heard something, but I did see an email tonight that showed the kind of scope and severity of the fallout that she suffered, and it was disgusting. I just found it so reprehensible, and it was so eclipsed any, some people said something about the F word, like that. It's literally a drop in the bucket, not meaningful whatsoever. Just a knee-jerk reaction to, a frustrating event. That to me is not disqualifying. I mean, I think if we were disqualifying people for having a knee-jerk reaction to a frustrating event, none of us would be here at all. So I think as I dug into this and I looked at kind of the objections people had, for me as someone who was trying to be impartial, which, was tough because my colleagues involved and we all have a collegial relationship and beyond, but it's our job to be impartial. It's our job to be someone who is going to weigh all the facts and who is going to look at the situation with a novel eye. And I saw, some Facebook exchanges that were, potentially for the people involved could have been, troubling or upsetting in some ways. But it didn't seem to me like it rose to a level of disqualification for serving on a committee. And in fact, it almost seemed like it was like two rival campaigns, like having some fallout from, a pretty bitterly contested election. And I don't mean to minimize it whatsoever, at all. But I do want to make sure that, you know, as we look at this, we look at the strengths and the intention, because Facebook is like a stamp in time, and it's not a measure of someone's character. And I think that, you know, two things that struck me from last night was, one, someone who's bilingual could potentially be a really good asset to this committee, and two, the ability to be reflective and to want to grow. And Gabby mentioned last night that she was willing to learn and grow from that situation. And that to me was, you know, where I was like, you know, I think that this is something that could work, and I think that we should be empowering people. And I don't want to disappoint my colleagues, but I also have to like go with my gut. And I feel that the more diversity we have on the CRC, the more opportunity there is for people to speak their minds and have different perspectives, the better it's going to be able to do its job. And that's, I think that's something, an opportunity we don't want to miss. So I guess I'll just end there.
Thank you, Councilor Derby. Anyone else? Okay, Councilor Rothschild.
I do want to mention too, besides all the people that showed up tonight to speak in favor of her nomination, I also got close to 25 emails in support of Gabby Stevenson. And a lot of these, and many of the people who wrote are people who have worked with her, who have spent a lot of time with her and would know how she works in a group. And I think that weighs a lot. And our constituents are coming out strongly in support of her, and that's something we should all be listening to as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rothschild. I saw Councilor Kwasinski. I saw your hand go up.
Councilor Lynch had his hand up too.
Okay, we'll move to Councilor Lynch and then come back to you, JP.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, first off, I want to apologize if there was any interrogation feel to the meeting. That was not the intent. The intent of the meeting was to, you know, just get a better understanding and question some of the concerns that were brought out by residents in the community. You know, and I agree with Tom, and it was brought up last night by Eric, you know, that the process is broken. So I'm going to promise now, you know, that I'm going to work with the mayor and other councilors and see if we can review the process and come up with something that's a little more efficient and effective, I would feel. So being the chair of the committee, I'm going to start doing that. And, you know, I do apologize, and I agree there's no place for hate in our community. I agree that there's no place for people to feel unsafe. You know, we are a welcoming community, you know, and everybody else is welcome here. So I do apologize on that behalf. What my vote was for yesterday is the fact of the past precedents that we've set with the other candidates that had a lot of opposition to that. In opposition, I mean, people have reached out saying that they didn't feel comfortable approaching an individual that was up for an appointment. And we received those emails, and I was being consistent with my voting, and that's why I feel, you know, that you know, if there's people in the community that are scared, and that's the precedents that we've set, like Tom alluded to earlier, you know, I think it's being consistent with each vote. You know, I think Gabby is more than qualified. She's been a friend of mine for almost 10 years. You know, I know, you know, everything that I want to be impartial. So I listened to everything that came into me, and 9 out of 10 things I wasn't even aware of. It was all new information to me. And I just sit there and I'm looking at it, and I take the friendship out of the equation and try to be impartial to this situation. And that's where, you know, I made my decision, you know, and being consistent with how I have personally voted in the past. And it wasn't anything, you know, motivated by any other counselors. It wasn't motivated by any other situation going on. It was motivated by the past precedents that I've set when I voted for this committee, and I have in the past two times we voted no. It was a lot of the same situations. So, you know, that's what I have to say on that. And I'm still torn personally right now as we sit here and we continue to listen to everybody speaking, because this is one of the hardest votes for me personally. And that's it. Thanks.
Councilor Kwasinski? I think we need to get you a different sound system for the next meeting, Councilor Kwasinski. We can't hear you. Nope.
Unmuted.
There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can. Oh, good. All right. We need a new sound system. I have to agree. Let me start by saying I have taken the position with anytime I've been informed of any Facebook postings or social media expressions or newspaper articles, and I'm informed of those positions, I evaluate and ask questions about those positions. I think it's our obligation as counselors to ask those questions, because we want to be sure that we have the right people on a committee who can be able to heal our community. I will read for a moment. As Dolly Parton recently said when talking about her support for Black Lives Matter, there's such a thing as innocent ignorance. And so many of us are guilty of that. Often we don't know what we don't know. And we only understand our own small individual perspective based on what we have been exposed to, what we've been taught, or what we've experienced ourselves. As community members, as members of government, as members of a community relations committee, and as humans, we must be able to bridge the gaps, listen to one another, and give people the opportunity to grow and affect positive change. What this conversation has been about is about appointing someone to the Community Relations Committee. The reality is that we, like every other city and town in this nation, have a huge issue with communication and a divide that we cannot let grow further and further apart. We need people who can create bridges and raise awareness to the many issues that plague us. This will take a very special set of individuals who have the tools, characteristics, and skills to effectively reach people of all walks of life, whether they agree with them or not. We need people who can translate messaging to different groups in a way that they can interpret and truly absorb. These spots cannot simply be given to people who yell the loudest, who clap back in anger, make inflammatory comments, or worse, unproven accusations. That only leads to people shutting down, digging in their heels, and refusing to listen altogether. We need people who can bring awareness, present ideas, and give people new information in a way they can absorb. No one reevaluates or questions their understanding of issues when attacked, and certainly not when they're being discussed in hugely negative ways. If Ms. Stevenson had responded to Councilor Zaret on the thread, Owen, I'd like to speak with you as to why the flag is problematic. As it seems you don't know. Can we discuss? It would have allowed for a learning opportunity and a chance not just to educate him, but moreover to get him to share his new understanding using his platform to bring further awareness to people who wouldn't otherwise have ever known better. The intent is to get people to start to reevaluate what they've been taught, what they think they know from a narrow lens. and allow people to change. We can't continue to approach every important issue with an assumption of malice and wrongdoing, rather than a need for education and a remedy to our innocent ignorance. Some people have not been exposed to certain things. Some people were taught erroneous things. Some people don't always have the knowledge to know better. Communication works when people feel safe to share their knowledge, as well as learn from what others have to say. In regards to a community relations committee, we need people who can not just listen, empathize, and discuss issues. They have to also be able to translate that information, that understanding to those issues effectively to the other side. The reality is this, that in this country and its communities are divided in every way you can imagine. The CRC is not just supposed to be about reform, but about understanding and building bridges, uniting the community. How individuals on the CRC handle important issues is imperative to the committee's success. If members come at important issues hitting hard off the bat with accusations, false narratives, public shaming, then we as a society will only further the divide. We cannot shut down conversations before they even start. If we cannot find effective ways to communicate that are part of the problem, then they are part of the problem, not the solution. To be clear, innocent ignorance only goes so far. And as Dolly said, as soon as you realize that something is a problem, you should fix it. But the first step is getting people to recognize problems so they can fix them. We need people who can communicate effectively so we can fix the ignorance and make real change. I want to be sure that we appoint people to the committee who can do that. Do I think that Gabby Stevenson has a terrific resume and has had great experience that I'd love to see on the committee? You betcha. Absolutely. Do I think that we need people of color on the committee? Absolutely. Do I think that we need strong voices on the committee? Absolutely. We need to bring everyone into the same tent. We need to be able to work together. So my questions that I asked about were regards to the emails that I received. And I received emails from folks, and believe me, if anyone knows me, I'm not, I've had serious questions about social media. I don't think you will see me on social media. It's just been a personal thing of mine. So I'm not aware of everything that's been said, but when constituents bring me that information, I listen to it, I read it, I try to learn as much as I can. So when I heard someone, several people write to me and say, blank off Easthampton, I was taken aback with that comment. Geez, it didn't seem like the kind of comment that would help to bring over the people who feel really good about Easthampton, but only put them off. So I had some questions about that. And I'd like to be able to distinguish between, and I was told that, well, signs were stolen from my property. Well, I'd be angry too, and no, you don't have to be perfect to be on the Community Relations Committee, but I think it's important to be able to distinguish between the crime that occurred and the people who committed that crime, than to wrap the whole issue into a city. Because I, for one, don't stand for anyone taking anyone's signs. We have free speech in this country, and it is an honor to be here and to support that. When I hear folks talk about harassment, and believe me, I read emails today, and I was informed that candidates were harassed with foul language. That is deplorable, unacceptable, and not part of what we stand for. It sickened me. No candidate should ever get such treatment. And I apologize to the individuals who put themselves forward. with regard to the ability to reflect on yourself, I think it's important to be able to step outside yourself and be able to reflect in order to build those bridges. Not everybody, I voted no on two occasions. So I think that we very clearly need people who not only understand the issues, who not only understand racism, but are able to bridge a gap and help us to understand what they know. So I would like to see people who are able to bring that forward, who want to bring it forward, and be able to educate all of us. So that's why I asked the questions that I did, because I believe this is an important decision for our city. And not everybody is the right person at the right time for the right committee. So I would like to encourage Gabby to be educative of the committee, to come to the meetings, to be there, to share the perspective and the opinion, and to help bridge the gap. I would ask you to do so. However, at this time, will be voting no to the appointment, as I have consistently voted in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kwasinski. Councilor Gomez.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to first start saying that if anyone in the appointment committee feel that we treat them unfairly, I apologize as one of the members of the appointments committee. Our intention will never be to try to treat anyone really bad. I don't think that we are sexist. I don't think that we are racist. By the way, I'm Puerto Rican, but you know I have a really strong accent being Puerto Rican. But I do apologize if anyone, Kathy, Myra, Gabby, or anyone feel mistreated in our committee. I just want to start saying that. I agree with Councilor Kwasinski. We need strong voices at the CRC. But my question is, what kind of voices? The voices, the strong voices that I just agree, or voices that have really strong voices because they have a different point of view and we have to respect them. Bridges, yes. We need people to they have to create bridges in the CRC. But which kind of bridges? Bridges that just bring the people that I just want, or everybody in our city. I think it's really important to have in mind the diversity in the CRC. It's really important. I'm so happy the Mayoral already passed 3-0, and I encourage my fellow councilors to vote to bring more diversity in at the CRC. I agree the process sometimes is tough, and we put people who are willing to be volunteer in a spot that they shouldn't. I agree 100% with that, and I take my hat out off, because you have to be brave to apply for something that be in the scrutiny of everybody here in our city. Definitely, this city need to be more open to sometimes understand other cultures, understand why some people have sometimes speak louder, not just because they're upset or mad, it's just because in their cultures speak like that. And we have to willing to be open and to understand that the people are different like us. About the post on social media, I agree. We vote no for 2 different candidates already, but every time that I do read those posts, I take each individual candidate differently. I evaluate differently. And I went one by one of those posts to figure it out if that was good enough or bad enough to disqualify that person to the CRC. And I will do exactly the same with Gabby, and I will do exactly the same with any other future candidate, because I think we should have to see every candidate individually and not in a whole group. Beside that, I don't have anything else. I'm gonna vote yes again, like yesterday, because I think we need more inclusion. I think people that will think different like us, and I think this is the time to open our community to say, hey, it's time to open the eyes and the ears that we have different people in our community, that they talk a different tone. That doesn't mean they are mean or something like that. It's just different tone of talking. Besides that, I'm going to vote in favor of it.
Councillor Rothschild?
I'm sorry, I just have to keep speaking up, but building bridges is not always comfortable. And I just want to say this to my fellow councillor Kwasinski and anyone else that feels that it's the job of people of color to make us feel comfortable with topics about racism. You're shaking your head no, but things that we hear is not going to make us feel comfortable. And I just want to read a quote from Ijoima Olu. Racial oppression should always be an emotional topic to discuss. It should always be anger-inducing. As long as racism exists to ruin the lives of countless people of color, it should be upsetting. It should be something that upsets us, but upsets us because it exists, not because we talk about it. And if you're white, and we're all white here, except for Omar, sorry. And if you don't want to feel any of that pain by having these conversations, then you are asking people of color to continue to bear the entire burden of racism alone. And I just want to say that I just feel that she's being held to a different level of scrutiny. And I'm disappointed that that would be my colleague's vote.
Councillor Rist?
So to say that I'm conflicted is an understatement. I began this evening knowing that I thought I would be voting no because of what I have heard and what has influenced me. But I'm conflicted now because I've heard one thing that has really disturbed me, and that's the harassment. And I even witnessed it by reading some of the posts in an email that was sent to me. That harassment that Gabby Stevenson has been undertaking, what's happened to her is just outrageous. And I wonder, I'm still conflicted, because I don't know if she'd be a good fit for this committee. I want her to have open dialogue, which is the first line in the committee's mission, open dialogue with anybody that's coming there and be willing to listen. But we have to listen to her, and that harassment really disturbed me. It has influenced me greatly. And if I voted no, am I rewarding that harassment? So I just want you to know I'm still very conflicted. But all of you that have participated this evening know that your participation is welcome, and it does, your voices matter, because we listen. All of us listen, especially me. As old as I am, I still have hearing. So thank you. I just don't want to reward that kind of harassment. I don't know. I'm just so conflicted. Thank you.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, go ahead, Councillor Peake.
Yeah, so still abstaining, but I've heard a lot of things that are interesting about process. And so I'm just going to say, last year, we all remember there was an election year. It was inexplicably kind of harsh at times. And people said a lot of things that maybe they regret, or maybe they don't, but that were said in that context. And I'm not telling anyone how to vote. If we look back on the way that some of these conversations happened and you want to take something away from that, then do whatever. But what I will ask you just for the future is if any part of your vote is going to be based off of a candidate using a swear word, then you need to recruit someone to run against me next year, and you need to hold a sign for them, because I swear every single day, and in fact proposed an amendment to the city council rules, making it so that you can't censure somebody for swearing outside of the council chambers, because I would be censured every single day if we were being serious about that. And most of you, except for Councilor Rothschild, who wasn't there at the time, voted for that. So I just, or actually, I don't know if Councilor Lynch was either, but regardless, it's not the point. Like, we can, there's I think a lot of, I don't know the answers to any of this, and I'm, and it doesn't matter because I can't vote on it anyway. But like, if we're trying to say that someone using a swear, like, there's better, more important things that you guys can be discussing, but don't talk about swear words, because I've heard every single one of you swear, and I've heard half the people on this call calling in swear. So that's all.
Thank you, Councilor Peak. Is that Councilor Derby?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, and good point, Tom. That gave me a little smile, so thank you. I just wanted to talk really briefly, and I will keep this brief, about precedent, because we have denied other applicants because of specific, whether it was social media or whether it was other forms of information that was put out. I think one thing that just needs to be said is, you take each application as it is and as on its own merits, number one. And number two, I think the difference between this and the difference between the other applicants that we denied, the other applicants had pervasive, widespread kind of things that were more globally offensive. This is at least from what I've seen, it seems to be an exchange with one of our peers. And that's a little concerning on its face. It's not a global interaction. All I've seen as far as things that are, what we're using as precedent for this particular case are things that are directed to one of our colleagues. It's not a global thing, who is a political figure, and part of that is kind of expected. So I just wanted to put that out there. We did set precedent, but it's not the same. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Councilor Derby. I would like to say something as well, and I am fairly certain I will not be articulate because I wasn't planning to say much of anything. I am not a fan of Facebook or social media, except to see my nieces and nephews and their offspring, and to maintain contact with my college friends. I think the rest of it you can have and enjoy yourselves, but I think it's ugly and I think it's mean. And I have also been kind of the subject of, people disagreeing with what I say and not picking up the phone to call me, but rather using Facebook as their vehicle to communicate with me. I think we can all do better. I think that's not what we're looking for in this journey that we're all going on. I think dialogue is really important. Judging people without having that conversation, really not good. So that's how I feel about social media. I'm sure you all were happy with my TED Talk. But in terms of this situation, I have been around the block on this 14 times, most of it today. And quite honestly, some of it from 6 p.m. to now. And I realized that I have the luxury of thinking about this and spinning around on it because I'm white. I can think of all the options and judge everyone on what they say and what they do, and I'm sitting in a position of privilege. I can do that, and I realize that. And today, possibly the smartest person I know is my wife, so clearly I've married up, said to me, given the environment of the nation, this community, how fortunate we are and how honored we should all feel to be doing this to be participating right now in what's going on. And none of us, and I'm looking at the entire screen, all of us are not doing this right. None of us are doing this right, because none of us have been here before. Possibly a couple of you have, but none of us are doing this in a real exemplary way, in engaging each other, in talking about things. We're not doing an awesome job at it. And I think that's what will be the benefit of the CRC, is to begin to have those conversations that are not so violently angry at each other. You know, and again, as I say that, I am aware that people should be angry. They should be really angry. And I have no license to judge their anger. I have not lived their lives. They should be pissed off, probably way worse than they're expressing, because they've had it not really fair for a long hundreds of years. And I think, you know, I think that I now realize that we are approaching a place where we have got to come together in a way that allows us to feel the honor of doing this work together, because it's crappy and it's ugly, and democracy is messy, as someone who I respect dearly says all the time. This is a messy time. This is a really messy time. But let's feel some honor about the privilege that we have to work on fixing this. And let's find a way to stop calling people out and bring them in. Let's start to have conversations where we can disagree and not get on Facebook and start calling people out and telling them they're the worst person on the planet. Not helpful, not the way we need to be doing this. So I honestly, I've gone so many different directions on this, but as I said, it's because I'm privileged to be able to think about things, you know, in my little white tower. And I feel very changed by the conversations I've had all day today, particularly with my wife. So yay you. And I realize that my job, or our job as people who are very privileged, is to step back and to let others step forward and get the opportunities that we've been denying them for hundreds of years. What they do and what Gabby does in this committee, that's on her. But for us to stop her at the door feels really wrong. And so, you know, I apologize, Gabby, because I have in no way, I probably have the email in here that has all the horrible things, but I believe you, and I think it's horrible, and I apologize for whoever I can apologize for, but mostly me. If I in any way enabled that, I apologize. And it's so not right. So yeah, so I've been around the block on this. I've told many people on this call which way I'm going to vote, and they may or may not be disappointed to hear that I've changed my mind. So we will move forward, and we will eventually, predicated on everybody having said what they need to say, we will take this vote. But I want to encourage everyone on this call, and really everyone in the community, if we're going to have a dialogue, then let's have a dialogue. A dialogue is you speak, I listen. A dialogue is we both have to understand the language of the other, and we have to listen. And all of this, you know, which I'm doing now, all of this pontificating about how awesome we are individually and we're not racist. Of course we're racist. We're white. We're racist. Let's all get comfortable with that phrase, because we are. And it's up to us to fix it. It's not up to anybody else to explain to us how not to be racist or how to play in the sandbox better. It's not for anybody to do. That's on us. I think we can figure this out. Read a couple of books, talk to some people. There's a lot of stuff out there to help people, white people, figure out how to be better allies. But we don't get to call ourselves allies until the people who are being so repressed tell us we are acting in an allied way. We don't get to put the banner on because we've read a book about white fragility. We have to do the work, and the work is messy, and the work stinks. But if we're going to do it, we have to go all in. And for that, I am going to vote yes tonight. So thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Zarek.
I just wanted to echo what you said. I think it's an important thing to say that social media can be a very ugly place. And I think it was Councilor Rothschild that talked about making ourselves uncomfortable. I want to be uncomfortable, right? I want to have these discussions. And clearly, from the feedback I've received here today, there's a lot of people who want to make me feel uncomfortable. And so I welcome those discussions. Let me know how to make them happen. You can call me. You could tell me how you think it's best for me to engage in those discussions. I do think that we have to not allow these missed opportunities to happen where there's just opposition and not an opportunities to find understanding. I still feel those were missed. When I reached out to candidate Stevenson to talk, I was trying to come from a place where I acknowledged that there was past issues, and I really wanted to see if we could find some common ground or maybe be made to feel uncomfortable. And that was all that was. So I still feel that because of these behaviors that she might not be the best fit for the CRC, but maybe we can have some discussions about that.
Anything else from anyone? All right, I think we had a motion and oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Kwasinski? I can't hear you.
He has to use his phone.
No, I know.
Yeah, I mean, having to
There
use
you
the
go.
phone, I apologize.
There you go.
And you? Oh, good. I've heard people say that using a swear word disqualifies. It does not disqualify anyone. That would be the last thing I would ever say. I am guilty. I admit it. I do my best in public not to use those words. I do my best to stay off of social media also, because I think it's tends to be a very ugly place. So I take it very seriously when the F word is used about wrapping up the entire city of Easthampton. And that's what I was talking about. It was the word Easthampton that concerned me, and not the swear about the people who stole something off my yard, off my lawn. They're criminals. They're awful. Whatever you want to say. So it could be offensive to lots of people in Easthampton. So my point was, I wanted to be sure that every opportunity to apologize to those people who would feel alienated because of that statement. Listen, I didn't hear an apology yesterday in that regard, with regard to that specific statement. I certainly apologize about not understanding well enough about the discomfort someone would feel about calling someone out as a white supremacist, as somebody who is a racist in public, and not being able to communicate with that person. I guess from my perspective, I would try to tell the person what I felt about them first. Now, I'm a white guy, and I understand maybe that gives us white privilege and an ability to say things to other people in ways that people of color are not comfortable doing. And I appreciate that very, very much. So if anything, Gabby, that I did to make you uncomfortable or to not understand, I would ask you and anyone to reach out and talk to me about this. So hopefully I can learn more about a different perspective, somebody else's perspective. Because only by us all listening to one another do I think we're going to be able to heal this community. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, Councilor Derby.
It's gonna be super quick. I promise this is my last one. I just wanted to say, you know, for the people that are concerned about this, I hope that she passes, and if she does, then she can show us that she can do the job, because this is not a lifetime appointment. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Right. Councilor Gomez.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm gonna say exactly what Councilor Derby said. It's gonna be quick.
I doubt it.
First, I want to say and apologize again to Gabby, but at the same time, I want to say thank you, because the conversation that we're having now at the council is amazing. I just want to add one thing. It's always easy to say, come to me and call me. It's better if we go out and talk to the other community. Ask, get out, talk, and learn. Thank you.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Councilor Gomez. I think it's really important for all of us to recognize that the work is for us to do, and not for us to say, hey, call me so that you can make me smarter about this. Nope, not their job. We have responsibility in this, and I'm taking it seriously. I mean, I am literally all over the place on book reading and going to various video things. I've joined a number of groups so that I can understand this all better and be a better city councilor and a better neighbor to people. And I suck at it, and I'm trying to get better, and hopefully I will. But I'm still doing it. And it has made me uncomfortable, but I can't even imagine that anything I'm feeling comes even remotely close to any discomfort people of color feel. And so I'm fine with sitting in my discomfort and figuring this all out. And I just want to reiterate that this is not on us to figure this out. This is not on the other person to help us figure this out. This is on us. Pick up a book, read. There's some amazing articles out there by, and I forget I think it's Nkisi Coates and some other folks who are just amazing in their honesty and their discussion around how we can be more helpful. So that's I just wanted to reiterate, Councilor Gomez, you kind of articulated it better than I did, but thank you all for this conversation. I think it has been uncomfortable, and I think that's kind of cool. And I hope we have more of these, because I think this is exactly what we need to do. And we need to all feel kind of a little uncomfortable around this. So, all right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any other counselors who have any other comments before we take the vote? All right, Barbara.
Dan Rist.
Pass.
Pass. Lindsay Rothschild.
Yes.
Say that again?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if you said pass. Owen Zarrett.
No.
Peg Coniff.
Yes.
Salem Derby.
Yeah.
Omar Gomez.
Yes.
JP Kaczynski.
Where's JP? JP, your camera's off. If you're giving us a thumbs up, we can't see it.
Pass.
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 Bill Lynch.
Yes.
Tom Peake. Abstain?
Abstain.
Dan Rist?
Yes.
JP Kaczynski?
I vote yes, and I'm hoping that by voting yes, Gabby can prove us that she is the kind of person who can heal this community. Thank you. I've listened.
7 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 abstention.
Motion passes. Thank you all for all of your effort tonight. Congratulations, Gabby. Thank you for tolerating all of this. We'll do better and look forward to the conversations. Thank you. I am going to propose a quick 5-minute break, recess, if you will, and then we'll come right back and finish with the reports. So we're going to go into recess for about 5 minutes. Can I have a motion to go into recess, or can I just do it?
I need a motion. The president can just call a recess.
Second.
Or we don't need a motion, or we do?
President can just call a recess.
Okay, taking a recess. Thank you. I actually didn't even look at the clock, but I don't think it's been 5 minutes yet. Close, though.
It should be 9:15 when we start.
All right. Thank you for keeping track.
It's easy for you to say, you fuck. You haven't been in there. Stay out of my...
Hey, Peg, you might want to mute everybody.
Yeah. Things are happening. That could have been the most entertaining thing that happens tonight, so it could have been fun. You look very outer spacey, Salem, with your glasses. They look blue. You look like you're kind of flying above the clouds.
So I took this video. I went hiking with Chloe. It was after a rainstorm, and it's actually on the cliffs of Mount Tom. And I wish I had sound, because the sound was like insane. But I thought it was such a cool, like, I mean, I'm looking down into Easthampton, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's kind of neat.
And these glasses are purely to protect my eyes, because these days city council meetings go for hours and hours. So all that blue light hurts my eyes. And plus, I have to be on Zoom all day. So, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Today was the start of school.
No.
Oh, gosh.
No.
Congratulations for surviving that.
Yeah.
All right. We have about a minute, and then we'll come back in session. Make sure everybody's back. Most particularly the counselors and Barbara. I see Barbara. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We need 2 more city councilors. I think Owen is there. And JP. Okay. Recess is ended. City council meeting is now back in session. We will move on to the report of the Finance Committee. Councilor Rist.
Thank you, Madam President. Hearing what the mayor said, that there is a school committee meeting next Wednesday, I'm hoping my fellow councilors on the Finance Committee can meet on the 30th instead, because I believe the mayor may want to be at that finance meeting. Can you give me a thumbs up if that's okay, Councilors Lynch and Coniff, the 30th instead of the 23rd?
All right, I'm just pulling up my calendar now.
We will be
at 5:30, I presume.
Yes. Okay, thanks, Bill. I have a few things for new business. I'd like to make these a first reading.
Okay.
We have a supplemental appropriation. A request is hereby made for the approval of $25,000 to be transferred from Fund 87 Cannabis Impact Fee Stabilization Account to be transferred to MassWorks Route 10 Improvement Account. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: for the installation of pedestrian safety improvements on Route 10, rectangular rapid flashing beacons. The next supplemental appropriation is hereby made for the amount of $46,000 to be transferred from Fund 87 Cannabis Impact Fee Stabilization Account to be transferred to Parson and Ferry Street Intersection Capital Project. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: for preliminary design services associated with the potential upgrade and reconfiguration of the Parsons and Ferry Street intersection. Finally, the amount requested is $60,000 to be transferred from capital stabilization to be transferred to sewer miscellaneous professional and technical services to the amount of $60,000. And I won't read the entire purpose, but the city has been awarded a Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Action Grant for 2021 fiscal year for the Green Infrastructure Planning and Resilient Cherry Street Project. The grant requires a 25% match from the city, which can include both in-kind services and cash match. We plan to provide a mix of in-kind and cash match for our portion of the funding. I move that these be sent to the Finance Committee for review.
Second.
Motion is second to move 3 supplemental appropriations to the Finance Committee. Any further discussion? Barbara?
Lindsay Rothschild.
Yes.
Owen Zara.
Yes.
Peg Coniff.
Yes.
Salem Derby.
Yes.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Bill Lynch. And Dan Rust.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I also move that the three aforementioned supplemental appropriations be set for public hearing on October 7th at 6:15.
Second?
Anyone?
Anyone?
I'll second that.
Second.
Wow. Motion is second to set a public hearing for the aforementioned appropriations. Was that October 7th, Dan, at 6:15?
Yes.
All right.
Owen Zarrett?
Yes.
Peg Coniff?
Yes.
Salem Derby?
Yes.
Omar Gomez?
Aye.
JP Kaczynski?
Aye.
Bill Lynch?
Yes.
Tom Peak?
Aye.
Dan Rist?
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And that concludes finance.
Councilor Rist, you have, under salaries and stipends, we have a expiration date of 10/4, and we don't meet again until 10/7.
All right, may I have a motion to extend that for 60 days?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second to extend review of salaries and stipends 60 days. Any discussion? Barbara?
Peg Coniff?
Yes.
Salem Derby?
Aye.
Omar Gomez?
Aye.
JP Kaczynski?
Aye.
Bill Lynch?
Yes.
Tom Peak?
Aye.
Dan Rist?
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild?
Aye.
Owen Zarrett?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thus concludes.
This concludes.
Thank you. Councilor Gomez, Public Safety.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to start saying that our next meeting is going to be October 6th at 6 p.m. I want to make a motion for an extension of 90-day extension for the request for review on street parking and restriction in the traffic rules and orders.
Second.
Motion second to extend traffic rules and orders 90 days. Any further discussion? Barbara?
Salem Derby?
Aye.
Okay. Omar
Second, aye.
Gomez?
Aye.
JP Kaczynski?
Aye.
Bill Lynch?
Yes.
Tom Peak?
Aye.
Dan Rist?
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild?
Aye.
Owen Zarrett?
Yes.
Peg Coniff?
Aye.
In the form,
Yeah, okay.
Motion passes. Sorry.
I'm sorry. In the form
Go ahead.
of a motion, I want to move new business, the fuel storage permit application for the new school at 200 Park Street to the Public Safety Committee.
Second.
Did we get a second? I'm sorry.
Salem.
Yes, Salem.
Motion second to move it to a public hearing. Did you say October 20?
No public hearing. Just
Oh, no
to
public hearing. I'm sorry. Okay.
to move the fuel storage permit application for the
Oh,
new
the
school.
new. Gotcha. Okay. Any further discussion? Barbara?
Omar Gomez?
Aye.
JP Kaczynski?
Aye.
Bill Lynch?
Yes.
Tom Peak?
Aye.
Dan Rist?
Aye.
Lindsay Rothschild?
Aye.
Owen Zarrett?
Yes.
Peg Coniff?
Yes.
Salem Derby?
Aye.
Motion passes. Anything else, Councilor Gomez?
Just a reminder that we have a public hearing October
It's the 21st.
the 21st
Yeah.
for the fuel storage license application for the 35 and 40 O'Neill Street. And that's concluded.
Thank you. Well, we've done appointments. Ordinance, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Madam President. We haven't met since our last meeting, but we do have a meeting coming up on Tuesday, the 22nd at 7 p.m. And we do have a pretty full docket, so it's probably going to be a pretty full meeting. So if you see something on our agenda, you can count on it getting talked about on next Tuesday. Thus concludes.
Councilor Derby, do you have a couple of public hearings scheduled? I don't know why. I have it written down as 10/7. That may be wrong. for proposed or for the plastics and the cannabis highway business issue. Is that still true? You're muted, but
it's muted. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's still true. You can see the asterisks on the agenda.
Yeah, the asterisks are a little screwed up. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, but it's October 7th. So our next meeting. Okay, got it. Thank you. Property, Councilor Zarek.
Thank you, Madam President. We don't really have anything to report. We haven't met. I did want the council to know I've reached out several times over the last few months, but it's hard to tell what months are with the pandemic. The Park Commission has no visible time and site of meeting. And I know this kind of creates this very difficult situation because we have this one agenda item that's basically sitting there that's kind of predicated, its further discussion is predicated on their meeting and discussing a possible site. So I'm just looking, we have plenty of time left on it. So, you know, we're kind of in limbo, and I apologize. I think in the absence of COVID, we would have been able to have a discussion about this by now. So that's what I have to report. And I don't think, we don't have any new business. So that concludes.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Zarek. Rules and Government Relations, where are you? Councilor Peak, there you are.
Thank you, Madam President. Okay, let's see. I'm just looking over our agenda. The only thing, the charter review draft document we can take off. We just passed that. Okay. The other stuff we're still working on. I want to get a meeting scheduled soon. I have yet to do so. So I should probably talk to the other members and figure that out. But since we don't have that, we haven't met since the last time we met. I think the only thing that is there is I want to move the proposal to consolidate the precincts to rules.
For the election?
Yes.
Okay. Motion is second to move the request to consolidate all of the districts into one building for the election. Councilor Zarek.
When do we have to make that decision by?
You need to vote at the next meeting.
October 7th.
Yep. And you need to report before then.
So we'll make sure to meet. I'll try and get with everyone right when the meeting's over and try and find a time that works for next week, hopefully. And I'll let you know as soon as I do.
Okay, great. I think we may have missed something unless I dozed off during ordinance report. There is an item on here, proposal to amend the city ordinance chapter 7 to add the position of health director.
Right. Well,
did that not be moved? Sorry.
We didn't take a vote on Tom.
Yes. We have a motion and a second.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Peg Coniff.
Yes.
Salem Derby.
Yes.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Dave Kaczynski.
Aye.
Bill Lynch.
Yes.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Yes.
Lindsay Rothschild.
Hi.
Owen Zarek.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. My apologies. Apparently I'm a little tired. Okay. Is that it thus concludes?
Thus concludes.
All right.
In terms of the RCV voting committee, we got a whole lot of work done on the ordinance, couple outstanding questions that we're going to talk about at the next meeting, but we're making a lot of progress.
Okay, great. I have nothing new to report on the senior tax work-off for meeting tomorrow night. So back to the new business of the proposal to amend to add the position of health director. I think that needs to be moved to ordinance. Does it not?
Generally, we realigned what goes to what committees.
Okay.
But generally, that's not something that would go to ordinance.
Okay.
Dan, would that go to rules? Maybe I don't know.
Well, since we realigned, it can go to any committee that that would, there's pay plan things on it, could go to finance, could go to rules. I defer to Tom. Do you want to take it up, Tom?
I have no issue taking it within rules if that's how we want to do it.
And I'm
really
happy
go
to take it as
wherever.
well. But I just thought that when we realigned, that's, I would say, typically something that you historically wouldn't have gone to ordinance. But I'm happy to take it.
Has it typically gone to finance before, Dan, or has it?
No, this is an administrative code thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's rules.
No, this isn't administrative code. This is amending the classification and pay plan.
So that would go to finance usually.
That has been going to finance, but I would like it to go to rules only because it is finance has 5 things on its agenda. So if Tom doesn't mind taking it, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, we'll now have 5 things, but that's.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to move that to that item to rules.
Second.
Motion is second to move the addition of the position of health director to the rules committee. Any further discussion? Barbara.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Yes.
Bill Lynch.
Yes.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Yes.
Lindsay Rothschild.
Yes.
Owen Zarrett.
Yes.
Peg Coniff.
Yes. All right. I believe that concludes all of the new, old business that we have on our plate. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Barbara?
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Yes.
Bill Lynch.
Yes.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Yes.
Lindsay Rothschild.
Yes.
Owen Zarrett.
Yes.
Peg Coniff.
Please, yes.
Salem Derby.
Yes.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a lovely evening.